2024. This meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and is being recorded for playback online. Attendees are reminded that by participating in or attending this meeting, you're consenting to having your likeness and audio captured by Westford Cable TV. The first agenda item at 7 o'clock is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum?
I wanted to mention that I went to Grassy Pond to the Storybook walk, and they did a really good job on that. They went the opposite way that I normally go, which was weird, but it was cute. Yeah, that's it.
Matt, do you have anything?
The Department of Public Works project on Old Lowell Road, the culvert being replaced over Pond Brook. I think they placed it yesterday or today or maybe tomorrow. So making good progress, and they're, I think last I heard, they're still on schedule to be opening or have limited traffic in time for schools opening. So. And then also, National Grid in the upcoming weeks is going to be starting their project removing or relocating the gas main at across Stony Brook at the Depot Street Bridge. So there will be construction going on and signs as such. So be mindful going through the construction area.
Paving or doing something, but they've got a lot going on right now anyway.
Mm-hmm. Do any members of the audience have something for open forum?
It's a small audience.
Okay, moving on to our 7:05 p.m. agenda item, we have a discussion with Dave Barr from Friends of Forge Pond about the drawdown and eco-harvesting.
I'm Dave Barr. I'm president of Friends of Forge Pond. I'm a member of the Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative, a member of the Walton Clinics Committee.
Can you talk in the mic?
Or just talk louder.
Or either way, your choice. You can be louder or in the mic.
How's that?
Same.
Mic just hello. The mic's just recording. So.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
We still need you to.
Sorry. So yeah, I'm part of Healthy Lakes and Ponds and Clean Lakes Committee for Littleton, Friends of Forge Pond, with those groups, I've been sort of heading up the process for the drawdowns and the eco harvesting and benthic mat pilot project that we're doing. So you wanted to hear about the drawdowns and eco harvesting. Should I talk about drawdowns first?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So we don't want to use herbicides on Forge Pond for various reasons. We have been doing annual winter drawdowns to try to control the invasive plants. The last 2 years, there have been a big increase in the plant growth on the lake. Last year was people that lived on the lake for decades there, and some of them their whole life, said it was more than they had seen in their time on the lake. We have some thoughts as to why that happened, if you're interested, but it did, and we weren't sure whether that was going to be like a one-off or a new kind of ratcheting up of things. And this year it was pretty much the same. So it might be the new normal when we're trying to mitigate that. It's a problem for people that are interested in using the lake for recreation, like at the beach, boating, fishing. It's also accelerating the eutrophication of the lake so that, it becomes over time less and less of a lake. So the drawdowns in the last couple of years have not really been successful. Generally, over the last, Friends of Forge Pond has been doing drawdowns for the last 15 years. And some years they're pretty good, some years they're not. But all in all, every second or third year, it's good, and that's enough to, keep things in check. The last 2 years haven't been. Specifically for the winter of 23-24, we, in terms of timing, we did things when we were supposed to in terms of starting and then getting things back to normal by April 1st. We're supposed to start October 15th. We're supposed to have things back to normal by April 1st, which we did. The lake was already coming down before we started. And in the first month, it came down quite well to, within a foot of our target. But then the main problem is that it's warmer winters, right? And so whereas normally the snow falls and stays on the land, and then in the spring it melts and goes into the lake, these last few winters, and especially this last year, it's been a lot of rain. We haven't had a lot of snow. And so when the rain falls, it, goes into the ground, goes into groundwater, runs off. So it effectively goes into the lake, and the lake comes back up again. In order to have a successful drawdown, it has to be low enough, and it has to be cold enough for about 2 weeks below freezing. And we didn't have that. There were some times when it was low. There were a few times when it was cold. We had, you can see there in January, we had a spell of about a week, a little over a week, where it was below freezing for that whole time. But at that time, the lake was up close to 204, which is, about half a foot below what it is right now. And then again, it came low again in March, early March, but the temperatures were high. So we're hoping that again, every few years we can have a good one, but this last year didn't really do much. The last thing I'll say is before the 22-23 drawdown, as we started it and the water came down and we had it down to about the level that we can get to, some of us went all the way around the lake and looked at the shoreline, and the shoreline that was exposed was uniformly free of plants, which kind of indicated that it works. But the previous year it had been a pretty good drawdown, so I think if you did it this fall, you might not see the same thing.
And the eco-harvesting that you had done for the first time last season?
Okay, yep. Because the drawdowns aren't doing such a good job, we're looking for other ways to try to control the plant growth. And we've been last year was the first year we tried eco-harvesting on Forge Pond. You all know what it is, right? I don't need to, yeah. And the year before, Littleton Clean Lakes Committee had tried it on Spectacle Pond, which is just upstream of Forge Pond, and it seemed to be useful there. So we tried it on the three lakes that have an issue in Littleton. And we had a small budget for trying it on Forge Pond last year. It was $7,000 from Clean Lakes Committee and $7,000 from Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative, which was enough for 4 machine days on the lake. And that was definitely not going to be enough, but it was something enough for us to see how, get a sense of how well it worked. So there were 2 machines that were brought like that. And the idea was to have the 2 machines each run for 2 8-hour days. We'd have 32 hours of machine hours of doing it. Yeah, so you can go to figure 2 now. And this is, there was a survey done last year with Health Lakes and Ponds that funded that. Health Lakes and Ponds and Clean Lakes Committee alternate years in terms of doing the survey over the whole lake. And this is showing the plant cover that TRC found a few weeks before the eco harvesting was done. We wanted to do the eco harvesting sometime in July. Because this was the first time they were doing it, we had to modify our orders of conditions. We needed a permit to do it, right? Matt suggested rather than doing a new separate order of conditions for that and having drawdown and, to kind of bring them all together. And if we want to do something else, bring that in too, so it begins to be more of a lake management order of conditions. So we did that, but we had to wait for natural heritage and wait. And so it wasn't until late August that we were able to do it, which was not the optimum time to do it. But this was the plant survey. I think it was probably early August that they did this.
This is August 23.
Huh?
August of 23.
Yeah, I think it was early August. So, and the red is where there's a high density of plant volume. The yellow is sort of a medium density. But by August, by some of the plants have already started to kind of come down at that point. I mean, I talked to these people at the time, and I reminded them again this year. We were out doing a tour of the lake for some people that wanted to see what the lake conditions were like, and they were out again. We just happened to see them the day that we were out, and they go around the shore, and because that's where the plants are. But last year, can you go to figure 3? So at the right end of the lake, there's that thing marked C. Yeah, there. There was a big area that had really dense plants all summer, which nobody had seen before. And it was very dense. It was stable. It was, I think, connected to the bottom, even though it's not so shallow there. And they didn't get that on their, in figure 2, you don't see that because they, go around the edge where the plants always are. They didn't, so that's why that wasn't shown on the, so let's stick with this one. This was the plan for the eco harvesting that we were going to do. We didn't have a lot of money, didn't have enough time on the lake to do everything, so we had 2 objectives. You've probably read this all, right? Okay, so you know what the 2 objectives are, right? So this area A, B, C, and D have big areas of plant growth, very dense, and we wanted to, in those areas, do like half or a third or, a good-sized chunk of that area, but not the whole area. So then we could see, come back later and say, here's where we did it and here's where we didn't do it. And how do they compare, as a way to get a sense of how well did they do in the first place and how well does it last, right? As it turns out, and then the other objective was along the shoreline, wherever there was a lot of plants and shoreline activity, both, we were going to make sure that all those areas got some level of treatment. Some of those areas that aren't shown either didn't have plants because they're steep, or they might have had plants, but there's nobody living there or using that part, and so we didn't plan to do that since we had, such a slim budget. Anyway, that week before they came out to do the work, that area C, that big area, just suddenly disappeared. So I think, the plants sort of had gone through their cycle and it just, went down to the bottom. But it was, and I think because it was deeper there, they did it anyway. So you can go to the next, the last slide. This is what we did on the different days, and like I said, they were going to be there for 2 full days, effectively with 2 machines. Halfway through the first day, one of the machines broke. Last summer, for the first time, we had these big floating clumps of reeds that usually lakes that have, they'll show up on lakes where they have herbicides treatments, and the plants, die, and they go to the bottom, and then they start to, decompose, and they get gas, and then they come up to the top, and they kind of float as a mat, and then they can, accumulate other plants and such, and so they can really be quite long-lived. And in some cases become permanent. Anyway, we had a few of those that showed up on Forge Pond last year for the first time. We know that some of them were kind of spin-off from the work that was being done on Beaverbrook Bridge from the construction. For instance, some of them were very clear because they still had the blue twine on the bale of hay that floated away from the thing and became the nucleus for the for the thing. But there were I don't know, probably 20 of them on the lake, and some of them ended up this winter floating down to the dam, and DPW was good enough to come in and with backhoe and move them out because they were going to, they were ensconced at the dam crest, and it would have been very difficult to get rid of them. Anyway, they tried the team tried to take out one of those, and in the process it was too big, too thick, too heavy, and it broke the machine. And they have a whole bunch of parts that they bring along with them because they're kind of fickle, but not these parts. So that machine was out of commission after the first half day. They did ultimately do all that they were supposed to, but they did it over 3 days instead of 2 days. The purple is the first day that what we did, and you can see it was mainly at the east end of the lake, and that A group A that we identified, and then along the southern shore of the Westford side of the lake. And I'll mention that that little mark of 1 there is next to the purple area. Was where we removed the plants on that first day. The boats went in way over at the west end where it says 2 at the only boat ramp on the lake last summer. And so if we had, their plan was to use that, and that means that the thing would have to go back and forth every time they needed to unload. It doesn't move very fast. The first day, we took them out at the place marked 1. The second day, we took them out at the place marked 2. And the third day, way down at the south end of the South Bay, we took them out at the site marked 3, which saved a lot of time in terms of, not having to drive back and forth. So they were able to do more harvesting and less, paddling. The second day was the purple or the pink, which is included Forge Beach and the north side of Westford, and the west side of the Littleton part. And then the third day was the yellowish, and was mostly the rest of the South Bay. And I was out there every day, kind of checking in and out with the guys, and sort of coordinating to make sure that they spent equal amounts of time on the two sides of the lake, to make sure that, that's only fair, right? So the last thing I'll say is, what did we see, right? When they came through and did it, where they did it, it did help, right? You could see that it only goes, they can go down as far as 4 or 5 feet, they can angle the thing down, but they tend to really keep it up higher so that they're really getting like the top couple feet. If the plants are very dense, they can kind of coalesce together and kind of be intertwined, and they can pull, and they can get quite a ways down, so a long ways down below where they're churning the water, right? But most of the time, the plants aren't that condensed and intertwined, and so they're mostly getting the top part, right? But that's the part that's got all the most of the leaves and the mess. And if that's out of the way, then people, it's easier. It makes a good environment for using the water. And two of the 3 areas that we ended up doing intense work on when we came back this spring and this summer, the area at the east end and the area down at the south end, you can still see where they did the work, and it's still quite a bit clearer than the part next to it. Okay, the third part where we did that over at the west end, where just past where it says 2, it wasn't as clear cut that a distinction, and I'm not sure why. But that was that's hopeful. The fact that this summer there's still some areas where it seemed like it could there was still some residual effect. On the other hand, where they did it around the shorelines, some places where they did it, it was more of a lick and a promise because they didn't have that much time. Some places people were out on the docks and said, "Could you do a bit more here?" And some areas, for whatever reason, they did spend more time. But our assessment was that even where they spent more time and they got a lot out in those areas along the shoreline, even a month later, it was kind of back to what it had been. So that's kind of a mixed result, right? This year, we have a bigger budget. We have, again, matching funding from Westford Health Lakes and Ponds and Littleton Clean Lakes Committee. We are, hoping to have a better sense of how well it works. The one thing that's unfortunate is that the DEP has decided that this harvesting needs to have the limits of removal that are applied to dredging. So dredging, if it's going to be more than 99 cubic yards, then you have to get, wider approvals from the state, even from Corps of Engineers, I think. But that has never really applied to plant harvesting before. I mean, all of the people we've talked to, including state, staffers, but it ended up getting stated that way by DEP, and it, for whatever reason, I can't understand why, got written into the IFB for the work. So we're limited to 99 cubic yards on removing from the lake. I don't know. I mean, I tried to find out how many cubic yards we removed last year. I talked to, the at the sites where it was removed to ask for their records. And I couldn't get it. This year will be more conscientious about, at the time, tracking how much got removed.
Do you have your date set for this year?
No, we don't. The other lakes in the other lakes in Littleton, where it was done before, it wasn't really tracked what kind of permitting they had. They had permits for herbicides, but they weren't really paying attention to the fact that it wasn't also for. But so this year they got new permits, and one of them got held up by natural resources or natural heritage, and it's still held up. And so as soon as they get that, then they're going to set the date. They're hoping to do it in the next couple of weeks.
So you'll keep Matt informed about,
Yeah.
as you get plans and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do the same sort of, I mean, it'll be a little trickier this year, because we don't know, we'll have to kind of, sort of do it iteratively, I don't know, or something like that, because we don't know what 99 cubic yards corresponds to, right? So, again, we'll have to try to be uniform and fair in terms of where it's being done, balanced, I should say, right? But, you don't want to say, okay, we're going to do this for the first 2 days and then this for, oops, we ran out of time.
Okay.
So it'll be a little tricky, but we'll try to do that. The idea this year was that, we hope it's not just maintenance, right? We hope that there's a
progression.
Persistence, right? Unfortunately, we won't know so much about the persistence until, early next year.
Okay.
But anyway, that's the best we can do, I guess. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the update.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
Moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, we have a public hearing for 11 Old Homestead Road.
Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, at 7:15 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application for Brian Petrantonio for the construction, I should have pre-read that, for the construction of a screen porch within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands and bordering land subject to flooding within 200 feet of Boutwell Brook at 11 Old Homestead Road.
Hi, good evening. My name's Maureen Harold. I'm from Norse Environmental Services here on behalf of the applicant. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to construct a screened-in porch within the existing footprint of the deck. So it'll be 16 by 16. We have a perennial stream, Boutwell Brook, that runs along the rear of the property. It's shown on the plan as the B series. We also have associated BVWs, that's shown on the plan as the A series and the C series. The existing deck itself is 29 feet from the bank of the stream, 56 feet from wetland flag 5A at the closest point. We are trying to minimize impact with this design because we are incorporating helical piles for this, as well as using some of the existing sonotubes for the deck as well. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
Any questions from members of the commission?
Looks like you're simply installing 3 sonotubes. I'm looking at the 3,
3 helical piles.
it's fine, it's on the existing location where the deck once was.
Roof drainage?
So we can certainly incorporate an infiltration trench or a stone trench, drip line trench around the proposed screened-in porch. That's not a problem.
I mean, I
think it's necessary.
We've seen drip lines, we've seen, we've seen runoff going to a dry well. I don't know if there's any benefit one versus the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think something is important to at least slow velocity off the roof. But I think, if gutters were proposed and, I'd be certainly in favor and have them direct to, a dry well, but if it's, if gutters aren't proposed, then it's, just as long as it's a, a crushed stone drip line.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim?
I only have the plan with me. I know the write-up was in our meeting packet, but I think this is the packet that just said specifically you could add some sort of a containment system for the runoff from the roof, right?
Yes, so that's certainly an option we can do if the commission has a preference. My client's
Yes, that would be good.
anxious to start the project, so if you prefer a Coltech or dry well as opposed to
Some way
drip line.
To contain the runoff.
Yeah,
That's all.
gutters and a dry well and
Either one would work, yep.
could be added as a condition and just,
Okay.
provide. With the building permit.
One other question is whether there are any dead or leaning trees that would pose a risk to this enhanced structure?
Right, so I spoke to the homeowner this afternoon, and he said at this time, he doesn't want to cut any trees.
Okay.
And I said, well, you need to approach the commission and at a minimum, call Matt if in the future you'd like to take down a tree or two.
Yeah, it's some, because, because there are no trees shown. Sometimes if there's a tree shown, we get a sense of how close it is.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, ask it now, it saves a second filing later on.
It's good advice.
Yeah, so, okay, I just figured I'd ask. Matt, you have it?
Just the only other condition would be that the contractor contact me when the erosion controls are installed,
Check.
just to inspect them.
Are there any comments or questions on this project from members of the audience? If there are no further questions, can I have a motion for a conditional negative determination?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for 90 Main Street.
Yes.
Over to you.
On it. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, at 7:20 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of Natalie Holland for the construction of an addition with garage, extension of a driveway, raising of a concrete patio, installation of a paver patio, and associated grading and utilities within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 90 Main Street.
Hi, good evening, Maureen Harold again. So tonight, I essentially want to introduce the project. Matt was kind enough to send me an email list of some items that would like to be on the plan. But this is a buffer zone project. We're proposing essentially a mudroom and an attached garage. The closest point is 20.5 feet from the BBW. We'd like to raise the existing concrete patio behind the house and construct a new patio area as well. I took a ride out because one of the questions was trees. So I saw 2 to 3 trees that I think will be very close to the addition if the commission decides to approve this project that we should probably cut. There were black walnut trees. I know we have some information missing on the plan in terms of grading, which was mentioned in the email, so I'll need to go back to the engineer and have him add those details. But I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
Marilyn, well, if you're cutting trees, can you also look at where you can replace them
Sure,
on the property, 1 for 1?
1 to 1, okay.
Jim?
The distance is really way closer than we would ever approve from the wetlands.
So why did you even bring this before us?
Well, the house was constructed in 1979, so it predates the local bylaws.
You're not renovating the house.
Yeah, we're talking about
Not
addition.
the deck, I'm talking about the garage and mudroom.
Within 20.5 feet.
Right.
Well, that area right now is existing lawn area.
That doesn't really matter. You know, existing lawn area is one thing, structure is another.
Okay, as part of my notice of intent filing, I did provide an alternative analysis as to if we were to meet the no structure, we essentially only have 2 options. One is to put the garage behind the house, which it essentially would be more impact to the buffer zone because we'd have to extend the driveway to behind the house. The other option is,
Actually, that's not correct. You know, saying that that's more intrusive, and no, putting a structure closer, you know, it would be preferable for the commission to have it here and a driveway to it versus the structure there. So,
even though it would likely result in more impervious area within the buffer zone?
not if you made it pervious pavement or something like that. We could work with that. But just because you have an area that's paved doesn't mean it has to be impervious.
Jim?
I had a couple of things. One was the garage it's too close. If you narrowed it to a single car and made it 2 cars deep, you could stay outside 30 feet easily. It'd be a little bit more inconvenient as far as using the garage, but at least it meets the distances. And then as far as the patio, are those permeable pavers you're going to be using, or?
We can certainly incorporate permeable pavers.
Okay, all right. And then lastly, the I assume that's a pre-existing shed, the hash-marked shed up to the,
That was, I did a little bit of research relating to this property in advance of the meeting. This house was constructed in 1979, subject to an order of conditions 334-0037. Yeah, there wasn't much in the file, but there was a filing at the time. Additionally, with the shed, I did find the building permit from 2010 timeframe, and my predecessor did sign off and noted it was a minor project in the location that it currently is.
okay.
So, because that was something that, I noticed as well, and, Bill did sign off on it, so
all right, thank you.
it's kind of in that same location.
You had referenced a list of questions, and that was a lot of my questions. I had questions about the height of the stone retaining wall, whether, this level of construction in close proximity to it could undermine, its function, looking for details about the specific septic location. There's a lot of information that we really need to see before we can, as we look at all the aspects
Well, I think we
of
can
what's
provide
proposed.
some comment, and I think we
Yeah.
have that, really needs to be in a different location or modified, and I think there are alternative locations where it could fit,
Snow removal.
and be less disruptive to.
I hadn't even thought about that.
That's your thing. Snow removal.
Snow removal. I hadn't
Oh.
even gotten that far yet.
Well, that's, yeah, but,
Yeah.
you know, let's focus on some of the,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you're right, that, and I'm hearing loud and clear from different people that, yes, you know, going to within 20 and a half feet of the wetland is closer than we would
we
let
don't
anybody go. You know, and they're just looking at reconfiguring, where the driveway is, not, where the garage is, you know, the location of the mudroom. Are there alternate configurations that will work for the applicant and still give us the setback we're looking for?
Well, I mean, this wouldn't be approvable. I mean, I want to get to a point where we can approve something, but we couldn't approve this.
May I ask the commission a question? Given the fact that the house was built in 1979, I understand the commission has a 55-foot no build, 30-foot no disturb. Is there any wiggle room in terms of the 55-foot no build in this type of scenario?
And I'm,
There are alternative locations where this could be put, so I really don't think that the age of the building makes that much of a difference to us. It has never in the past. And there's sufficient areas here to accommodate it in a different location.
so at this point, yeah, because it's, the existing structure is just within that 55 no build. So I think what you're saying is go off and look at alternatives.
Well, anything that would put this back
Further
here,
away.
perhaps potentially up in front here,
We
and
can't put-
modify the septic. I know there are things that could be done, but yeah, you can move the septic. We had it's not the first time we've had a septic moved to accommodate a structure.
You
You know,
mean,
maybe there's well, I'm saying you could
okay,
put the garage in front of the house, but supposedly the septic is there. I've seen a lot of things be engineered to make things work, but I'm saying right now, this is not approvable in its current format.
It's just too close.
Would the commission like to do a site visit if they're just?
I don't think a site visit is gonna change the
No,
fact of
I-
where
I'm
it's
just-
at.
I'm just-
I mean, they can show us where they potentially
Right, I
could
agree
put
with
it, but I
that.
don't think
I don't
taking a
think a
walk
site
is gonna
visit-
help.
Okay.
Yeah.
you don't think seeing it in three-dimensional
Well,
is,
we're not gonna permit anything
Yeah,
in
it can only go
20.5.
in a couple of locations, so it's not like we have a lot of choice.
okay.
May I ask one other question?
Of course.
Does the commission consider cost as a factor? So one of the alternatives was relocating the septic system. Well, that's a
No, we
40,000.
don't consider cost a factor.
Okay, that's
We
unfortunate.
have never considered cost a factor. In fact, it's something that we
The
can't
world has
consider.
changed, we get that.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad. The cost of things.
Did you have anything?
No, just the comments about the shed and permeable pavers as well for, you know, the patio. But if the commission feels reevaluating the location, then that's further down the road.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience? So, with the continuation, is our first or second meeting in August? Timeline for you.
I think I'm gonna need the second meeting in August, and I need to discuss this with my client.
Okay.
August already, oh my God.
The second meeting is,
August 28th.
okay. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 28th?
So
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our 7:30 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Spalding Hill Homes, 24 St. Paul Lane.
Is this the? No, this is the.
Oh, yes,
This is a new
yes, it
Okay,
is.
okay, I thought so. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024, at 7:30 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intent application of David Guthrie, Spalding Hill Homes Incorporated, for installation of a boulder slope and clearing and grading associated with the installation of a septic system within 100 feet of bordering vegetative wetlands at 24 St. Paul Lane.
Good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Spalding Hill Homes, Inc. Lot 16 is, it's located at the northern end of the site, down at the end of what I call the loop. I think you're all familiar with Spalding Hill Estates subdivision. When you get up into the subdivision, there's a large loop with an interior common area, and this is at the far northern end where we have a ultimately going to be a wetland basin at the bottom of the slope, and this is uphill from that. Basically, what we're proposing is a 4-bedroom house with a septic system and some grading to enlarge the backyard area. The work in the buffer zone is extends to the 75-foot wetland buffer. The 50-foot no-clear zone doesn't even come into the lot. The house is well away from the 100-foot buffer, and the septic system is also outside the 100-foot buffer. So all we're looking to do is grading. The boulder slope is going to be large boulders in the range of maybe like a half cubic yard up to maybe 2 cubic yards each. The slope will be constructed with fill, graded and compacted in lifts, and then the boulders will be placed on the edge of the slope to hold it all in place. And then the voids in the larger boulders will be filled with smaller stones. Not crushed stone, but smaller stones. The slope will be about a 1-to-1, probably a little bit flatter than a 1-to-1, but no steeper than a 1-to-1. And I know there was, someone was questioning the small retaining walls that are in the very backyard of the house. And those are just walls that are 2 to 2.5 feet high, integrated block walls just for landscaping. And it will allow a little level area directly behind the house, then a little terraced area, terraced slope with the walls going down into a level area on top of the septic system. So the only work we're proposing to do is a little bit of, some grading between the 75 and 100-foot buffer zone.
Does this require additional clearing beyond what was cleared previously?
Yes, it does. We only cleared up to the buffer zone before.
Okay.
But what was shown on the definitive plan was into the buffer zone, but not quite this much. I don't have the definitive, I don't know if Matt has it available, but
That'll take a little
Okay.
time.
that'll take a little time to load
Was this
up.
rock wall shown?
This is new.
This is new.
Yeah, that wasn't shown on the
Definitive
definitive.
plan had, I'm assuming, a 3-to-1 slope.
Yeah, it showed 3-to-1 slope and grading
This
with
is
an
like
estimate
1-to-1.
of.
So when we've done stuff like this in the past, I know we've run into some issue where people were wondering about the structural integrity of the rock wall, to the extent where, we'd had to come back at least on one and put in shotcrete and try to stabilize the wall, because folks were concerned that, the wall was becoming destabilized. So how do we make sure that we're not going to run into that issue? And then we run into some where folks are saying, geez, we put up a stone wall, we did this, now, 10 years down the line, Freestar or whatever, the rocks are starting to move and little Johnny and Susie are playing on them, they might get crushed and we need to do something. We heard that argument but 6 months ago.
Right, yeah.
Very close to this site. So makes me concerned when I see something like this, what we might have to deal with in the future.
There are quite a few walls similar to this that are obviously outside the buffer, since you haven't seen it before, that are in very good shape. They've been there over a year, so they've been through at least one winter. They're all grassed and stabilized above the wall.
Are they to this scale?
See, the issue
Yeah.
was, we approved it last time, and since we approved it, it's like all of a sudden it became our liability and responsibility because we approved the stone wall.
Right.
So
So,
it
you
wasn't
know,
not
my-
only
my-
the contractor, but I remember Bill got into some issues with it because, you know, Bill was like, oh, this is okay.
Yeah, I mean, my question, you know, on the outset is, you know, is this even necessary? You know, we're removing
know.
vegetation, we're encroaching into the 100-foot buffer for a larger yard. I don't, if that's my, you know, if the commission wants to weigh that. Additionally, with, you know, I think there are some of the tops and bottoms of it is 8 feet in some spots, top, bottom 7, another 6, and then I guess it kind of comes up. Does this need, you know, I would want to get the opinion
And
of.
if it was a retaining wall, there'd have to be a structural.
And if it was over a certain
Engineering
height, we
design.
need
Yeah,
to
over
get
4
some
feet.
sort of,
You know,
you know, a PE's got to stamp it and tell me it meets some structural integrity design.
Right, you know, I'd be
Standard.
interested to, you know, reach out, you know, connect with the building commissioner to get his opinion on it, because again, you know, and with this being different than the planning board's approval, you know, does that need to be, you know, do they need to weigh in as well? You know, I stopped out earlier this week to, you know, and walked behind it, and it's certainly, you know, the 8 feet of, you know, they stopped at the 100-foot buffer, you know, the vegetation is still there, with kind of the placement of the boulders that kind of in,
Yeah, along the backside.
yeah, this is, you know, they stop at the
That's already
100-foot
there.
buffer, because again, this is all vegetated. And it's, you know, if the commission is to allow it, I would at minimum want, you know, fences up there, because that's a, I mean, it's a,
I guess we should keep it open and get some sort of idea of whether or not this can be approved.
Well, and.
Well,
one of
the other alternative would be to slope it at 3 to 1, but that would encroach into the buffer zone more.
But,
Or just cut back on the amount
You
of
couldn't put a-
backyard, then cut back on the buffer zone less.
Well, if we clear all the way to the lot line and come up with a 3 to 1 slope,
I mean, you can't, I mean, there's already existing block retaining walls out there that, you know, had to be installed for emergency access, you know. I don't know why, you know.
you on St. James?
Yeah, on the emergency access road to Dunstable Road.
St. James? Oh, the block walls, yeah.
Yeah, right, you know, if, again, there's an alternative of, you know, a block retaining
Instead of
wall,
using stone, use a block wall.
and it stays out of the buffer.
Well, and, because.
No, we want to extend the yard into the buffer, and
I understand you want to do that, you know,
And
but
we
what's
have-
the
we-
environmental, you know, alternative of,
your regulations allow it.
you know, no, I mean, there's a practical, you know, is an evaluation of alternatives. Your one-page narrative doesn't, you know, there's no alternative identified.
We don't need an alternatives analysis for something that's permitted by the regulations.
It's,
So when you showed us this plan before that we approved, it didn't show the clearing and the extent of what you're proposing now. I mean, am I to look at a plan in the future and say, I'm gonna deny this because I'm not really getting good sense of what's ultimately being proposed?
No, when we did the definitive subdivision, I made it very clear that the lots were gonna have their own separate filing, and what was shown on the definitive was based on an estimate of what the grading for the septic was gonna be like, and also an estimate of what the house footprints were gonna be like, because that was all unknown. And that's the way it's always been done, that, yeah, we might show some
And
grading.
that's true, but typically it's like, okay, we got a good sense of, you know, you're given an envelope and I know that, you know, outside of that envelope or whatever, it isn't gonna be built or disturbed or whatever. And here it's just is like, okay, you know, I have a lot more disturbance and alteration in an area that, you know, I didn't think was gonna get disturbed. And, you know, collectively, cumulatively, when you do that around all the number of homes, if that's what happens, ends up being a lot more development than you an alteration that you thought you were going to get based on, you know, the original proposal for the subdivision. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, we account for that with the drainage, because each lot has its own drainage analysis that has to be submitted, which is why we do the roof drain designs on a lot of the lots out here. So that's all taken into
Like land that's
consideration.
not being disturbed versus land that's being disturbed, and, you know, if each lot is having more disturbed land, I know what you're saying about drainage and stuff like that, but isn't there a calculation where, you know, have to be so much open space per how much space is being utilized?
Yeah.
For the open space.
Yeah.
We have.
And are we cutting into that by,
I mean, that would be the planning board. I mean, I'd like to point out, you know, Chapter 235, Section 235-2E1, practical alternatives. Applicants are required to demonstrate that there are no practical alternatives to the proposed project with less adverse impact on the protected wetlands, related water resource areas, adjoining land areas, and associated interests. A practicable alternative is an available and feasible alternative which will accomplish the project's purpose, considering cost, logistics, the proposed use, and the most current technology. And, you know, the scope and alternatives shall be commensurate with the type and size of the project. I think that's in the commission's rules and regulations.
Right, but
So-
the
so-
regulations also allow for no clearing up to the 50-foot no disturb.
If there are no, if there are no practical
Well,
alternatives.
no, I mean, the purpose of regulations is to make things regular, okay? So, I mean, it's the same thing as, suppose you're driving down the highway at 65 and a state cop pulls you over and says, I want you to go 55, even though the law says you can go 65. It's the same principle. That's why you have regulations. There's also a section in the bylaw, or in the bylaw, that says the commission shall adopt regulations to provide for a uniform application of the bylaw. And that's what the purpose of the regulation
Right,
is.
that's the rules and regulations, and that's this right here.
Yeah, but when you say you can't
Standards and
go,
setbacks.
well, the practical alternatives, I mean, the way I read that is if you want to try and do something that's going into the limits that are established by the
You know,
commission.
adverse impact to the protected wetlands, related wetland resource areas, adjoining land areas, and associated interests. This is into an adjoining land area. No?
so is there a way that we can do this?
I mean,
with
I
a
can-
block wall or something like that that's gonna be, you know, less impacted?
Well,
Right
one
at the
of the
100-foot buffer?
One of the things, one of the concerns that I had with this rock wall, thinking back to our site visit at Tadmuck Meadow, is they've got a rock retaining wall very close to the edge of the 30-foot no disturb buffer, and they've had an explosion of invasive plants that are basically coming up over the wall, you know, growing up the wall, and it's looking like, you know, the way this is set up, you're not set up to be able to deal with whatever decides to grow up through the rock wall or along the foot of it. You've got a homeowner who's all of a sudden going to potentially have stuff encroaching in this rock wall, potentially destabilizing it. It's like, you know, it's not set up to be something that's going to be, it's going to create problems for the homeowner in the future. You know, that was one of the things that I saw at Tadmuck Meadows is all of a sudden they've got stuff growing up over the wall and they've got no way to really, well, no, they do have a way to address it, but it's kind of a problem that nobody foresaw happening because we'd never seen it before. And that's one of the things that concerned me about, you know, both the transition in height and the narrowness, you know, that it's
That's
never
right
more
down to
than.
the 30-foot no disturb, so there's really not much of an ability to do anything.
No, but
the bottom of the wall.
here you've actually, you know, you're showing that the toe of this rock wall is going to be into the existing tree line. It's going to be a place that's kept natural, and one of the things that I'm foreseeing based on what we've seen on other sites is you will have that natural area decide to start growing up your rock wall. And, you know, and it just, do you start having trees whose roots destabilize the rocks? Do you have a homeowner who's now got to figure out how to deal with this? You know, those are implications of this design choice that I'm questioning. Because that homeowner is going to be coming to us when they've got a problem to solve.
What if we were to install a barrier beneath the boulders to prevent growth from coming up through it?
It just,
Do a
Doesn't seem
polyethylene.
practicable.
it just, yeah, you've got bittersweet that decides to grow up that rock wall. You've got, you know, you've got trees growing up along the foot of it. It just is kind
It's
of,
gonna be problematic. It
Yeah.
just, it is, and we've seen it, and so we're seeking some sort of design change, knowing what we've seen.
that if it was,
A block wall, large blocks would be preferable.
I think it would probably be easier to maintain, and I think down the
We-
future, we wouldn't be hearing of the problems like you say, you know, destabilization of the rock wall due to roots and other things, or just freeze thaw, and it's,
yeah, you just, and you're not really having,
Might be easier to maintain.
it might be a little bit easier to maintain. Trees would be growing up straight. You're not really creating a ramp that vegetation could grow up. So, yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea of a rock wall, but just from what we saw at Tadmuck Meadows, you know, I can see where down the line this becomes a problem for the homeowner.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with different types of invasive species, but I didn't notice that this particular area had a lot of invasives. I know further up towards the,
Anywhere where
screaming
you-
around there,
Anywhere you
down,
put a
everywhere.
disturbed area, you're gonna
When you
get
disturb the
invasive
soil,
species.
yeah, you know, when you talk bittersweet, you talk autumn olive, those things just kind of, you go through Lakeside Meadows, and you look at how much autumn olive is taken over that, it just, yeah, it's not overnight, but they come in and then they grow.
yeah, I got to admit, I don't know plants.
No, and we're just really seeing it. It's just so
Yes.
prolific.
Right.
So,
Those are our comments.
okay. You've had your comments. Are there any comments or questions from members of the audience on this project? So, in terms of moving forward,
Moving forward, we can go to the next meeting in August, or the first meeting in August, and I will have a revised design.
okay.
Right.
Do we need to touch base with the planning board?
I mean, I can and get the, you know, have the town planner opine as to whether or not they're, you know, if they do, that's another, you know, step that will need to be addressed.
Yeah, for all of the other lots that we've done that had these walls, the planning board has not required anything. The town planner has been familiar with them, so was the building inspector, because he's seen them on all of the as-built plans that we've done. But I will discuss, you know, the block wall with the developer and see what he has to say.
Okay,
On page 103 of this,
I can't hear you.
on page 103, it says something about the conservation posts. Affixed to existing trees. I'd rather not have anything affixed to the existing trees.
Usually on granite markers or something, you know,
yeah, or
posts
a fence
whatever.
post.
Yeah,
We've-
but not like on
It
the.
says in the
yeah.
order of conditions that that was one of the recommendations for not
I
not
think
just the
for-
conservation markers, but for
For
the open space
1710, I
boundaries
think
too.
it says either 4x4 posts or proximate trees.
Placards nailed to the trees with, I think it was aluminum nails.
So, and you're talking about the overall subdivision?
Yes, the overall subdivision.
Okay.
With the open space.
Well, and actually, so the no disturb, since the 50-foot, would this site have a no disturb? No, so, okay. And also, if you would, with the, when you're coming back with a revised plan, if you'd also tell us how many more trees you're taking down, mature trees, and where the replacement plantings would be?
Okay.
Okay. So can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 14th?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
You-
thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so we have a continued public hearing for Diamond 64 Lakeshore Drive North.
Hello guys, my name is Alec Chongs at Chongs Engineering, representing the applicant at 64 Lakeshore Drive, Charles Diamond. Apologize I couldn't make it last week, it was a conflict of our schedule, but we're here now. So what we're proposing here is, right now we have a currently house with a failed Title V system, so we're proposing replacing the failed system with a new Title V compliant system, no increase in bedroom, no increase in flow. They're also proposing adding an addition, and it's going to be a great room to allow for more living space, as well as expanding the front porch. I have a few comments I received from the agent that I want to just go over. Understanding that the septic system beyond the 50-foot buffer, and to be beyond the 100-foot buffer, I just interpreted the regulation that upgrades are allowed in the 50, but if that's constraint, we can certainly push it beyond the 100, but it'd probably result in taking down a few more trees and would be close to the setback of the drainage, but that's a Board of Health concern, and we can discuss your options later on. The trees that are proposed to come down are white oaks, greater than 12-inch diameters. Those are for the addition because it's going to be within the excavation limits. And so we're asking for a variance to allow us to have the edge of the proposed porch be within less than 55 feet. And I understand that, we're asking for 41 feet approximately, and I understand the regulation requires 55 feet. And we're just hoping to kind of keep the parallel structure, but we'll be happy to take some comments and concerns.
Comments or questions from members of the commission?
For the trees that you're planning to take down because of the proposed addition, do you have a proposal for where you put any replacements?
We can put it wherever you guys would prefer. If you want it within the 50-foot buffer, closer to it, it's definitely an option that I would like to take your input on.
Do you have any suggestions where you would put them?
The applicant isn't really picky on it, so I mean, he'd probably want to keep him further away from his yard area because that's kind of like a lawn area he wants to play in. But
Right, because you don't want them growing towards the house to be cut
Correct.
down in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're
you're going to propose some places then,
yeah, we can certainly propose places and have it.
and types of trees, because you don't want to put in.
Do you guys like
General-
do you tip? Maybe, all right.
Yeah, but also talk to your, Eric?
No, finish yours, and then I have something to say.
So, we've got, with white pines, it's a lovely native species, but grows really tall, creates problems for the homeowner, creates problems for the neighbor. So also talk to your applicant, looking for native trees that maybe don't grow so tall.
Yep. Can discuss.
So my question is, looking at his plan here, his existing tank and his existing leaching field is outside the 100,
Yeah, this is all closer, yeah.
and now he's all closer. Now, I know that typically in areas like this, they could dig out that area sometimes and put the existing leaching, or the new leaching field in the location of
Into
the
the existing
existing.
location?
Here, I'm wondering, is this maximum feasible compliance? Because I'm thinking it's not.
Okay.
I'd have to double check too, because I believe so after I submitted the plans already, the proposed location was an actual approved plan, post Title V. I'm not 100% convinced it was installed. I have to double check with Title V. They may be on a cesspool still that would be close to the 50-foot buffer. So that I do have to confirm and double check with the Title V report, because that possibly was never installed, that system
You
there.
mean, so what, okay.
So you're saying.
So what I'm seeing isn't really installed the way it's showing?
I'd have to double check with the Title V report, because when I reviewed it, it said there's no as-built record. There was only a proposed.
Because you see what I'm saying, Matt?
Yeah.
You know,
You're right,
typically
right.
somebody,
Yeah.
we'd be like, yeah, if you can put it out there. And I've seen people do a Presby, I've seen people do all sorts of innovative things to keep it out. And here we're just, putting it to the side here, so that would be question number one.
Right.
My second question is the proposed addition. That must have a full foundation?
Yes.
Because I see the line running out from the septic you know, to the box from the house, so it's probably got to be a full foundation.
Yes.
So what are they going to do with the material and stuff that they dig out?
We have a proposed stockpile and it's beyond the 100-foot buffer, as well as a proposed.
So,
squash
okay,
pad
when you
area.
dig the hole for the proposed addition, that stockpile area outside of the 100 is where you're going to put the material?
Correct.
Okay.
Is it gonna stay on site, or is it,
It depends on the cut fill. I mean, we're not, if you finish grade is a match existing grade, so if it has to get removed, it has to get removed.
Okay,
That's
so-
why you see no proposed contours here, because proposed grade is the match existing grade.
The porch is at grade, or is it like 6 feet off the ground, or is it below and above, or?
It's a step, it's on footings, like a little concrete.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just not sure if I've got a patio and then I've got a deck above it, or I just got a patio, or?
I don't think you provided
I haven't even picked, yeah, I didn't provide the architectural, but it's gonna match the existing one, which is a double step. It's like 2 steps up. If you can see on the plan, see the little, on the existing porch, there's like a 3-step up there, so I'd have to double check the architectural plans, but I'm assuming we'll be matching it. Yes, we can follow up with that.
so the closest point from the structure to, the edge of the pond is 44.4 feet?
Correct.
And what we tend to do is when there's an existing structure that doesn't meet the 55-foot setback, we say, you know, you can go no closer than your existing closest distance, so
Yep.
the 44.4.
For sure, and the addition itself is definitely beyond that, so if we have to revise the porch, I mean, obviously we prefer the porch, but we have to revise the porch to show,
Just
something like
do a
that.
reconfigure or something, you know, just,
Reconfiguration, but we are also proposing collecting up to 1-inch runoff to allow some alleviance on that as well, because I don't believe that's required in the regulations, but we are willing to collect 1 inch for the proposed addition.
so what's the dimensions of the proposed porch?
The dimensions of the proposed porch, let's look at the architectural plans. They're 23 feet by 9.5 feet,
So it's 9.5 feet out from the proposed addition and
Correct.
23 feet across, okay.
matching into it, yep.
Okay, yeah, but yes, that's basically been our rule of thumb, is if you're closer than 55, if you're closer than 55 feet, you can go as close as you already are, but not closer.
Sure. Now, just as the case we're trying to keep that, if we were to collect the entire roof runoff, would we be able to have any flexibility with allowing us to keep it at that, or?
That's basically, that's what we've held prior projects to, that's what we'll
Yep.
hold future projects to, so we just try and implement it uniformly.
Understood.
Any other questions from members of the commission?
I have a question as well. So
Sure.
for in terms of septic though, even the soil here is very good soil, and it's contour elevation like 84 at the pond, and it's almost 102, so big drop. If we were to push it beyond the 100-foot buffer, we most likely be putting it where we already have test pits, where there's a multiple trees getting removed. Would you guys prefer seeing the trees get removed if the septic being beyond the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have these, I'd for sure have you remove these trees and put the septic out, and then I'd have you plant those trees somewhere else.
Are those white pines?
Those are oaks, but do you guys, I'm sorry, what do you,
Those white
I
pines?
believe they're white oaks in the front as well. I'd have to.
Okay. Yeah,
identify
I mean,
those.
it's just,
Yeah, that's
as
what,
Eric said, yes, we'd rather have the septic outside the 100-foot and then,
Put the trees in
plant
after.
replacement trees.
Now, do you guys have jurisdiction beyond the 100-foot buffer for trees getting removed too?
Well, yeah, actually, that's, yeah, it's normally.
well, it would
within
be
the
out of
buffer.
our jurisdiction, if you took them,
It's
that
out
would
of
be.
our jurisdiction. But yeah,
Yeah.
Just the other 4, I mean, the other 4 then could be
Right.
relocated.
Right, the ones that would be removed as part of the proposed addition.
right, yeah, so, yeah,
And then, and if I double check, I apologize for not having the information. If this is a proposed, like I said, there wasn't an as-built plan for the septic we have shown here. If the existing system is within the 50 to 100-foot buffer, after reviewing the Title V report,
This
are you
is-
still gonna push it?
Where's-
This is stamped by a PE, and it does say it's outside the 100-foot.
No, this is correct, because those
But
were
it's
based on
ne-
the design
But you're
plan,
saying it's wrong?
not an
never been
as-built.
built.
No, it's,
It may never have been built,
Well,
Or installed.
It says it's there.
or it,
Based on a design plan.
if he can get it outside the 100, he has to do maximum feasible compliance, that's
If
outside the 100.
if there's any
I don't
chance we're
care what
reviewing
this shows.
if there's any chance we're reviewing a plan that's not correct, this whole thing should be tossed.
No, because again, it's based on design plan on the as-built
The
plan.
plan says that there's a,
And if you look at the
existing
plan
tank.
where it's referenced from a plan from the record for a town, which is a design plan on
Okay.
as-built plan.
So, Jim, I understand your
Yeah,
point.
Jim, I get you, so, yeah.
Okay, but, yeah, so
That's
find
fine.
out
We
if
can,
it was
if you
built.
want it, that's what I just want to know. If you want it beyond the
We've-
100-foot buffer, we can put it beyond.
We've had enough cases.
Let's try to
where-
do that if we can.
Yeah, we've had enough cases where we had to replace a septic because the septic was in the groundwater. We want it outside the 100-foot buffer whenever we can get it.
Sure.
Well, he has to meet maximum feasible compliance, and if he
Yeah.
can put it outside the 100, he has to.
Yep,
And again, we'll double check that too, because we do have some variance we have to pull from Board of Health on that one possibly with the property line and the catch basin right next to it, so that's, Board of Health's had the plan for about a month. They haven't had any comment from them yet, so still waiting to hear their feedback.
okay.
Cool. So when do you want to continue to?
No, we're not
I
right.
know, we're not, I know, we have to,
Well, Matt, did you have anything?
Nothing further.
in an audience.
And then the audience. Any comments or questions from the audience on this project? Okay, so,
What are the dates?
August 10th, August 14th or 28th?
I think we'll do the 14th.
Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to August 14th?
Second.
All those in... Okay, moving on to our 7:50 PM agenda item, request for certificate of compliance for 2 Oakdale Road. And
This is being tabled to a future meeting. The erosion controls we're still in, and we'll have, there's some minor plan revisions.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:55 PM agenda item, it's a continuation of a public hearing for Wilma Realty Trust, 426 Littleton Road.
They're coming.
They're coming, okay.
Just as a point of a updated, as of last week, we did receive natural heritage comments regarding the proposed project. Granted, I think there's a minor Scrivener's error because the plans that were provided were not 5 days in the future from today. But I think it was 7/9 as opposed to 7/29. But Natural Heritage had no adverse take or prohibited take either.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you feeling?
Great. You have,
Nice, I know.
That's why I asked.
it's great.
2 weeks,
Great.
that's just,
Yeah, less than 2 weeks.
wow.
I even can get in and out of my car.
Wow.
Well, good evening. For the record, Douglas Duchesne from Pinner and Nicholson representing Wilma Realty Trust. I actually had 2 quick updates for you, but I think Matt just reported one, that we received a letter from Natural Heritage that even with the modifications that we've made, we're still in a no-take situation. Also, I was just talking with David and made sure that we have not received, and I'm sure you haven't, any new or revised comments from DEP. So, you know, that's always a good sign. So as you'll recall, when we were here last, we believe we had made all of the requested changes that you had asked for and redid the snow plows process and location. We now are proposing storage completely out of the 100-foot buffer zone. We had also discussed our planned revegetation and our proposed invasive species plan, and I think we came to a location. So our position is that I think we've all worked very hard to design the project to not only meet the standards under the Wetlands Protection Act, but I will remind the board that I believe our current proposal meets all of your local regulations. And, you know, again, we've tried to go a little above and beyond in terms of the snow deposits. recall also that in addition, we have proposed a very good revegetation of the buffer zone. And also, as again I mentioned earlier and we discussed last week, an invasive species management proposal that is generally in keeping, Dave did a lot of research, and it's in keeping with sort of the current DEP policies and regulations. I don't know if it's been your experience, but I find DEP has not really commented much or been very proactive on, requiring management of invasive species, and that we're seeing more of that imposed on the Conservation Commission level, not only here in Westford, but in other towns. But we do believe that what we've proposed is in keeping with what little direction and policy DEP has provided out there. So our hope tonight was to answer any additional questions or address any other questions you might have, but we were hoping that our discussion tonight would center more on specific conditions that the commission would like to impose in hopefully offering us an order of conditions. So I know, Eric, you had wanted some opportunity
To just take a look at it and make sure that we had the
No, cool.
opportunity.
And that's exactly what
Yep.
we did. So we're here tonight to answer any further questions you have, and then hopefully discuss, what kind of conditions you'd like to see.
I'm good.
Okay, so I really appreciate you getting all the snow storage out of the buffer zone. I appreciate that. That also means that, whatever, fuel oils, et cetera, are in the snow will stay within the treatment.
Yep.
There's been, the discussions about the trees that are being removed, what the planting plans are, what the vegetation management plans are, that's all been very verbal. I think what I would really like to see is just a report that summarizes the trees you're removing, what you're doing for the Japanese knotweed removal, the research of the latest best practices, just something written that's part of the project record so that we're not going back and looking at meeting minutes trying to figure out, okay, what we agreed to, because there's a lot of detail in what you've proposed, and I'd like to see that just as something written up.
Articulated somewhere, yeah.
Articulated, not so much on a plan, because like, for example, when I looked at the latest plan set, it's not there. So it's kind of like you write a memo, a report. It's just a written document that says this is what we're taking out, this is how we're gonna do stuff.
So would you add that narrative to the order of conditions?
And I would add it to the end of, same thing with, I would add that as, an appendices, after the special, that the work shall be done with, Exhibit A, or B.
Yeah, it's everything that you've said, just, we've got it in writing so that we can all have a
Reference
common
it when
document
need
to
be,
refer
yeah.
back
No, I
to.
get it, and again, you make it a part of the order.
Yep.
Dave gave me the wink. He said he'd be happy to do that.
Okay. The second one is looking at this, and there's reference to a 50-foot no disturb zone. And one of the things I've realized that this plan doesn't have, that we see on our plans, is when there's going to be a no disturb buffer that gets delineated, so it's clear where your guys can go in and mow and where they don't mow, so that the vegetation can, because here we've got really nothing between the wetlands and the limit of work. And so it's, our standard practice is, delineating a no disturb buffer, finding a way to mark it with a wooden fence or posts or whatever that have a placard on it, so that the landscaping people, et cetera, know where they're supposed to do stuff and where they're not supposed to. And then that would be, we normally reference that in a special condition that is a conditions in perpetuity, so even after you get your certificate of compliance, it's agreed that beyond that, that demarcation, it's left to naturalize. And then the last point was also, we've had, again, some great discussions about what you're going to do to limit, fuel oils, pesticides, herbicides, all those products that may be stored overnight, that you're your tenants have on their trailers that are stored outdoors in the buffer zone is, there's been talk about, what was the language that was used? Conditions in the leasing contracts and limitations on lessees. And again, we'd like to see something that kind of is a written summary of what those all are, so that we have that in our project record and can also reference that in the order of
I'll be
conditions.
responsible for that.
Okay,
If you want to provide a written example of the lease.
A draft agreement,
Lease.
draft understanding, acknowledgement that, so that, when they are, renting it, they're, signing
and so,
another piece of paper to make sure that they can't say, oh, I didn't know,
yeah,
it's
and
the-
it just,
the-
it's, if it's a landscape contractor, are they gonna wanna keep their trailers in those parking spots over winter? And it's like, okay, if you're gonna do that, please take the gasoline cans, the herbicide and stuff like that and put them in your building.
Well, I think the majority of trailers that they use these days are box trailers. So there's some level of containment. So they're enclosed, right? And they have small walls on the sides. And so they do have some level of containment.
Okay, and I think, this is where we're getting down into the detail and,
Yeah.
we wanna see that it's thought out, we wanna, see where you've gotten to with your future tenants, so that we know what it's gonna look like when,
It's a reference point for us.
and it's a
And
reference
again, you
point
can
for
then
us.
put it in the order of conditions.
Yes.
Got
So-
down the road. We're hoping
Yeah.
for no trouble, but if there was, there'd be a reference.
The lease, I think, is the best way to control it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
I can draft the special conditions, and my apologies for not providing, I apologize for not getting the chair's comments to you guys. That was new parent brain. I got everybody else's, but that one was too long.
You could play that one for a while.
Exactly.
My kids are 30 and I'm still,
Okay. Are there any comments or questions on this project from members of the audience? Okay, so we're looking to continue to the 14th?
The 14th, then we'll have
That work
draft,
for you guys?
communicate, provide draft conditions.
and we'll get the three things that you just required, just so that we, don't have a misstep here. What are your thoughts on where you'd like to see the signage, buffer zone, the typical signage?
I would say the limit of work where, you have where the erosion controls are going,
Okay?
as, we're disturbing this to, include everything.
Yeah, so Daniel, maybe you could get a draft, we could send it over to Matt for his review,
Well,
and then tighten it up.
but also this going to the applicant, your client, in terms of, a lot of times we've done just posts with a placard on it. Sometimes we found it's worked better for the property owner where it's a fence, so you're not having to ride herd on your landscaping crew.
Like
We
split
did that in
rail?
the replication area.
Yeah, like split rail?
4x4 posts,
Okay,
with the proper signage.
okay.
But what they're also saying, if in some ways, it could potentially also make it easier, especially when you have a long area to put a split rail fence.
Right.
Then
Yeah, and then you can just put the placard on the fence
it's on one of the
post.
posts. But we'll have Daniel put together a plan, we'll work with Matt, make sure that it's in keeping with what you guys want.
Okay,
And we'll get all of those things to you, in advance of the next meeting.
Perfect.
can I
I
have
think
a motion?
it would just be a matter of, the siltation barrier line would just be
Yep.
also the fence line,
There you
Okay.
go.
That's fine, yep. Can I have a motion to continue to August 14th? Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Well, thank you very much for your
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
Quick visit.
Glad to see you're on this
Always a
side of it
pleasure.
now.
Yeah,
Okay. So moving on
Yeah, have
to
a
our
good night,
8
man.
PM agenda item,
this is incredible.
we have an appointment with Bobby's Ranch about the use of Emmett and the Neshoba Conservation Areas.
Oh, it's crazy.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good evening.
I'm Cassie, I'm Teresa. We are both granddaughters of Bob Senior, so.
Cool.
So yeah, we got the cease and desist, and we've done a little research of our own in the process, trying to figure out why we got the cease and desist in the first place. I mean, obviously, we know there was kids in the water. For that, we're sorry. We have boarders. We have a lot of little kids that we have that own horses at the property, and they must have taken the horses in the water. They went swimming, so we're not the only ones that go out there and use the pond and utilize the water. You know, we know that. We've been careful in the past. We grew up there, Teresa and I. We've been there for over 40 years off and on. So we love the woods. We certainly want to do what's best for the woods. We've always cared for it. You know, we've always maintained it, kept it safe. We have a lot of people that are out there now that haven't really been around in the past. You know, a lot of people have moved in and walk in, and lots of parties and lots of stuff happening at the pond. So we've made new trails to avoid the pond and avoid the people, to keep ourselves safe, to keep our horses safe, to keep the pond clean, to sort of, you know, keep the peace with everybody. So we made new trails closer to home, and started utilizing what we thought was mostly Vinebrook property, because they don't mind us using their property. We're sort of what they've said are we're their eyes and ears out there. You know, we do make sure that things are safe and the way that they should be. And since we've done a little research, we've found out that there are property lines that we didn't know were conservation and were Vinebrook. We can certainly go out and clean. We can certainly pick daily. We've been using only Vinebrook property the past couple weeks so we can stay in business. We are trying to stay in business. Yeah, it's a struggle, and now we're feeling the push from the town that's supposed to be supporting us. So we understand we're utilizing what you call your property. It's all of our property. We all want to care about it and love it the same. And if you guys feel as though our horses are damaging it, we certainly want to help to try to repair that, you know, and try to keep it as clean as we can, as clean as you guys think need be out there. You know, we didn't know there was an agreement with Bob. We went back and did some watching of the videos and some research, and we did see that in 2017 that he had what I don't know if he even knew, but what you guys had was a verbal agreement with him to go out and clean the trails a couple times a week or whatever it was. He since then has declined rapidly. He's actually actively dying currently, and we're here instead of there. But we're trying to keep his legacy going. We're trying to keep what he started going. And sorry, without getting emotional, I'll give it to my sister or Lauren if someone can speak.
I just want to clarify that we do not take customers to the pond. We believe that they may have been kids that were not aware. We do have new boarders in as well, and so it wasn't communicated. There's no signage out there. And we're happy to open it up if you would like to ask our customers so that we do not go to the pond. In reviewing the meetings that you talked about, we are not making a profit. We obviously, yes, we are using it for commercial purposes, but we are not making a profit. We are operating at a loss. And as commercial users, we do hope that you understand that this is also the horses eat local hay. They eat local grain. It comes out of Vermont. The hay is either New York or Massachusetts.
Littleton.
Lunenburg.
We hire veterinarians, we hire farriers, we hire local people, we serve local citizens. It is our interest to maintain the woods as well. Because of our financial situation, it's, you know, having a lot of our labor is volunteer. So we can do our best if we are able to. We're actually having to reevaluate our business model because a lot of the horses that we've had for a long time. They're getting older. 10 years ago, we took 4 times as many customers. So we feel that our pressure on this, obviously it's a lot of acreage, is less. So, you know, we hope that we can come to a compromise here, and that you can see us as an asset. You know, aside from our commercial use, we always tag the town in our social media postings, so we are
Promoting
trying
our
to give
local
back
businesses.
already.
Yeah.
We do not have places to eat on property, or, you know, people are always asking us, where can we send them to Kimball's, where can we get gas, where can we get some coffee? So we do refer to other local businesses. So we're here to try and come to a compromise, to hear out what you expect of us, to do our best to meet those terms, in hopes that we can at least have a limited ability to run trail rides. But, you know, like I said, our model has to change and adapt for us to stay in business. We're looking to other examples, like there's a place in New Hampshire called Mountain Lane. They run trail rides a couple times a week. So the pressure will, I think, continue to reduce if we are able to turn around our trail ride aspect. That would depend on our success. We want to be better stewards, so we would hope to be able to provide more labor to help keep everything clean. We've done some research. What we found is that there really are low amounts of zoonotics. There's not really very much coliform bacteria. It's actually very popular with butterflies, dragonflies, multiple species. The water content breaks down in a matter of hours. Generally, manure breaks down in about 2 weeks. We haven't really found a lot of information otherwise, and typically the protocol is to kick it off the trail. It's a nuisance to look at. We step in it all day long, so it's obviously, you know, to us it's more benign probably than maybe a hiker or someone on a bike. But as far as the impact on the woods, I see a lot of native species out there. Obviously there are invasives out there, but I love to point out to our customers, you know, that here's some beautiful butterflies. This is a mourning cloak. It's the first one to come out in the winter. Look, it's puddling, ponding on our horse's manure because it has minerals and moisture that it's looking for. So, yeah.
So I appreciate you taking the time with what's going on with your family to come and speak with us. I really appreciate your interest in working cooperatively with us and finding a solution. I think
I did receive, and I can share with you, a letter of support that was shared with the commission. Somebody was unable to attend, but did write in.
It's a regular customer of ours. She rides with us weekly. Yeah.
The old issues, how are we gonna deal with the manure?
We're happy to,
Looking
you know,
back,
Set up a
Well,
plan.
and I think, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you had talked about, in terms of putting in new trails to keep away from the pond and stuff like that. Matt, would those have, so when you put it, when
I
they
think
put in.
those are the parcels that you all walked and they were on the cease and desist. We were always under the impression it was part of Vinebrook.
Okay, so, yeah, but we had seen, so what I'm just trying to get the pieces together in my mind. So where we had, with the map that you had printed, would those have been, because I know that when people, there are trails apps where people cut a
Yeah,
new
they'll
trail
come
and
through
all
our
of a sudden
property to access them.
Yeah, but if somebody goes and creates a new trail, somehow it automatically gets out there on the web and then everybody else finds it. So
Right.
some of it is, I think, part of what's probably good is a proactive conversation that, you know, in terms of where trails are, if you see a need for a different trail or you've got some ideas, one of the good things is to reach out to us and so we can have a conversation that says, what do we want to do? Can we do this in a way that meets the needs of both parties? I think, yes, the questions we have to talk about is how we deal with the horse manure, because, for example, people walking their dogs, we ask them to pick it up and take it home with us.
It doesn't make its way home.
It does not. We pick it up all the time in plastic bags.
With the
Yes.
past 2 weeks
All the
not
time.
being out by the pond, we have driven out to Trailside Way and walked out to Kennedy's. We retrieved 12 bags of dog poop that were thrown off to the side, along with takeout boxes.
But it's in plastic bags.
Yeah.
Glass
That's
bottles,
helpful.
Starbucks cups.
It's constant.
Panera
It's a
cups.
constant.
Yeah.
Fishing lures.
And manure does not contain what carnivores
Right, they don't
contain.
even
It
eat.
does not have the Giardia, Cryptosporidia, E. coli.
And I think, and then one of the other things we need to talk about is, as we build a plan going forward, is it maybe, if we come up with a plan that says here are a trail network that can be used for trail rides, how do we want to basically take it away from the pond? How do we structure it so that we're
First of all,
meeting?
we can't really say anything that's outside of our jurisdiction or our properties. It's on somebody else. That's up
But
to
no,
somebody.
but it's, on our properties is,
Yeah, we can be
is,
proactive on ours and
Yes.
yeah, keep them away
On
from
our
the
properties,
ponds
right.
and select trails and we can work on that, but yeah.
well, no, but where I was going is it says with because some of the recurring questions have been around the trails closest to Kennedy Pond. Do we want to say maybe, does it make better sense that if we're looking at trails for horseback riding, that it stays away from the pond? And this,
Oh, for
I'm not
sure.
answering a question, I'm not asking a question to be answered right now, but it's some of the things that I think we need to talk about,
We can answer them in short order, though. Yes, we
Yes.
want we want the horses to stay away from the pond.
okay.
And we also want the manure picked up or not dropped.
Okay,
Make
Well,
collection devices.
it shouldn't become such a nuisance that it is a nuisance to others who are trying to use the trails.
okay.
And I thought that's how it came to our attention in the first place, because people were bringing it to our attention that they were having issues being able to utilize the trails due to all the manure.
So I can promise,
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Yeah, if you're gonna speak, please identify yourself at the microphone.
come up to the mic, let us know who you are, and
Right now?
Sure.
If you want to share your
If you want to
comment.
address it, have something to say, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
How's it going? Joseph Miller.
Go, man.
If it's such a nuisance, how come, I said Joseph Miller.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's such a nuisance, but everything else, all the trash, all the partying, the fires, all that stuff. I mean, how come you're not addressing that?
We try to address it all.
But you're only addressing the horse manure.
Well,
That's what came before
that's
us.
because that's who's complaining.
Well, it started with the horse manure right next to the pond. And what we're doing is we're gathering information. We've seen those party spots, where somebody's had a bonfire. And, these are remote sites. It's getting harder for us to get in there, to get the police there, to say, okay, let's shut this activity down. Jim?
If you see if you're out there on the trails.
Yes.
And you see people trashing the place with fires, public drinking that thing, call the police
We have.
non-emergency
Yeah, we
line
have.
immediately.
Okay.
Good.
The other
I do
incident.
the exact same thing. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we gotta do. And the police, if they get enough calls, hopefully they'll start doing something.
So another thing too that we've noticed recently, I don't trail ride, I don't like the horses, but I'm in the woods a lot, okay?
Okay.
A big thing is the bicycles. All these bicyclists are making trails on their apps, and they're riding through.
Mountain bikes?
Mountain
Yeah,
bikes.
they
Okay.
come through our
They're going
property
through
all the
everywhere,
time.
they're adding bridges, they're bringing out lumber, okay? They're out there cutting down branches. No one's saying anything about that, but I guarantee you, those are the people that are complaining about the horse manure because they're out there with leaf blowers for over 6 miles of trails with a leaf blower.
they were.
How do
Okay.
they get
So-
to do that?
They walk in
They
from
have-
behind our property.
They have little apps that they use your land, as you said, your land, for active bicycling. And they put it out there on the web, like you said. People come from all over, and they ride their bikes through there. I've had several conversations with people, and they've complained about the horse manure because it was in the trail. But, I mean, these are the same people that are out there cutting branches, pulling out weeds, pulling out, you know, live.
So,
So, I mean, to pick on the horse manure is kind of
so, yeah, and
ridiculous.
and this is one of those things that a problem comes up, and the more we dig, the more we find.
Yeah.
And,
You know, having the horses out there definitely helps minimize that kind of activity. It helps with the people that are out there with their dogs and they're pooping on the ground and they're leaving it in bags, plastic everywhere, the trash, the partying. These people are the ones that are policing it, you know, because you guys cannot.
well, and
we're happy to.
We're
We're
happy
happy
to.
to.
we
We're
want to
happy
do
to work
is-
with you guys.
So you see these issues, you know, you see a problem, like Jim said, call, if you see it in the act,
Yep.
call the non-emergency line.
Of
You
course.
see it after the fact, you know, take a picture.
Yep.
Matt, I'm sorry, but you can send a picture to Matt, you can send a picture.
I've called the police several times on the fires and stuff because they get out of control over by the
There's
park, you know, by the
lots
lake.
of underbrush.
So, I have a town email address.
Okay.
Matt has an email address. That's how.
Yeah, so going further, that seems like a good idea,
So,
but
yeah,
as of right
you
now.
see something and you think it's not right, you think we want to know about it, we do want to know about it. The more
Absolutely.
information you give us.
The more we can ask for help.
These are challenging problems to solve, but a lot of this is, if we don't know it's happening or we don't have an idea of the scale, we don't even know what to start on. And so we'll be glad to take.
When we do make phone calls, because last year there was 3 calls alone to fires being had out by Kennedy's.
Okay,
When we make that police report and the police come out and they scout the land, they make the people put the fire out, do we then call you? Or do the police contact you?
They won't contact us. We
Yeah,
find-
no,
we find it in the police
you need to
block.
let me know as well, and then I can
Okay.
find the police report.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward, I think that would help.
that's what we, because that's what we also do up at East Boston camps,
Okay.
is as we find out about police reports, we ask for a copy of the details so that we start to see what, you know,
Trend.
we see the trends, we see what's got to be dealt with. We may not have an answer up front, but once we start getting in the information, we can, you know, we start looking at what we've got to deal with and looking to try and come up with a solution. So, yeah, you know, send us emails.
Love to be able to continue working, because doing the digging after the cease and desist about the relationship that our grandfather had and the help that he provided with some of his machinery and building some of the bridges for more people to access from Texas Road over onto what we call the straightaway, but it's owned by the Kennedys, and that brings you up towards Kennedy's Pond. I'd love to continue the relationship if we're allowed to.
Jim?
When Bobby was here, what was that, you said it was 2017?
I think that was the last one I found when we were
I
researching.
recall that meeting also, and we had implied given permission to use to continue using the property. We didn't do anything in writing. That's a bad thing on us. We didn't put the agreement in writing. But I think if we put something in writing now, that we can probably reach some sort of an agreement where you guys, I know people are saying things that about the manure on the trails is not a hazard, it's not a problem. It is. It is a problem. It is a hazard for other users, other legitimate users, not the bicyclists, not the partiers, not the trash droppers or anything like that, but just the people that want to walk along a trail and through the woods.
Sure.
So if you guys come up with a mechanism and a timeline for cleaning the manure droppings and staying away from the pond, this is just on the property that the Conservation Commission has custody. I would be okay with putting this thing in writing, allowing them to.
What was the second, you said manure and?
Staying away from the pond.
Stay away from the
Okay,
pond
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, thanks.
from the droppings.
I have a question too when you're done, Jim.
That would, I think, be reasonable as far as our concern is for the environment, especially the pond, and it would allow them to continue their business, which according to the town's right to farm bylaw, town agencies are encouraged to support businesses and farming and agricultural businesses, of which commercial keeping of horses is specifically included. So I think we ought
could
to
use
do
your
what we can.
support.
You have a question?
I do have a question. So as far as cleanup goes, in the past, we've been able to bring like small four-wheelers onto the trails. Would that be something that you guys would approve with like a tow behind just to do?
You guys don't.
Okay, so, yeah, okay. So one of the things is, and I believe the parcel is, there's an exclusion for motorized vehicles. What you're saying, Matt, is that if we can basically come up with our own proposal
Yeah,
to facilitate
a memorandum of understanding with.
Sure.
Mark, this is Drive. I've been going out pretty much on a regular basis, cleaning up the manure from the trail around the pond. And I agree with all the problems that he said. But the problem with the manure at the pond is that, you can pick up the trash, you can tell people to leave, but the nutrients that come from the manure, they go into the pond. Once the pond is polluted and weeds start to grow, algae starts to grow, because there's no flushing from the pond, it's never going to recover. So once it's polluted, it's forever, unless you're doing major renovation, remediation. You're dredging all the sediments out where all the phosphorus goes to, which is what triggers the blooms of algae and weeds. So that's the problem with getting manure out. And one of the problems with the cleaning up is that, as I know from having gone out there regularly to clean it up, the horses smash down the horse poop so that it's not just piles that can easily be scooped up. You often end up with this smear of horse manure, and then it rains on top of it, and you basically have this
Grass, like grass, right?
I'm sorry, you didn't introduce yourself. I don't know.
He did.
Sure.
He said his name.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry.
He's quiet.
So,
Wasn't quite sure.
which is impossible to clean up. So
At that point, I think it's natural manure, isn't it?
So if we're talking about maybe picking up the horse manure from other trails, but excluding the horses from all around the pond, the trail goes all the way around the pond.
There is. It's labeled horse trail on the north side, along with 3 other trails.
I went out this.
You guys, he's talking to us. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
I'm just
Don, just finish your,
I'm just going to say that when I went out for over 1 month in the spring, I picked up and I brought it home for my garden, but I got plenty in 1 month. I got a pile of manure that was 5 feet wide and like 2.5 feet high.
okay,
Just from the trail around the pond.
okay, so.
I would fill up a backpack every single time, which is dedicated just to horse manure, every single time I went out to pick up
Okay,
manure.
so, I think, yeah, so,
I apologize, we do have borders. As a company, we don't bring customers out there. I'm not sure if the borders are aware, and we're trying to spread words, but on the north side of the pond, closer to the islands, there's actually 2 sinkholes. So we stopped using that in the springtime because of last year, the extreme flooding that happened out there.
The Boy
There
Scout
was a-
Bridge is really bad too out there. I don't know if
Okay.
you guys know that yet.
The runoff was really bad, so we actually
Pictures would be
stopped
great.
taking customers
I
on the
have
north
pictures.
side. Yeah?
okay, well, no, just send them to Matt now.
Sure can. I'll leave them right now.
So what we need is a written document that will lay out, is it a written, or just a memo of it? Is this whole thing gonna be a memorandum of understanding?
I think a memorandum of understanding accomplishes all,
Everything
both,
you want.
both the commission's, identifying and stating the commission's interests, while also, again, working with, with Bobby's Ranch, again, based upon, the testimony as, I don't think a license agreement, I don't think some, a fee is, I don't think a fee is the appropriate mechanism. So I think, I think a memorandum of understanding, signed by the trustee, whoever's in charge, however it's set up, and the commission's chair with, as reviewed by the commission and, both parties, and that's, kind of the, as discussed with the order of conditions for, 426 Littleton Road. It's, it establishes the ground rules, it establishes the expectations, and then it's written and it's not the ambiguity of, oh yeah, well, yeah, we talked about it, and then
Right.
it's no, like,
Right, it's there.
it's something
Yeah.
written, we can, and, then if changes need be, we can.
And if
act
you
on
can
them there.
provide Matt with in terms of thinking how you'd go out and on a regular basis, pick up the manure that's on the trails, thinking about you know, from a practical standpoint, what you would need to do to take out there, because obviously the trails seem like they go for a long way, is give him the language of what you would want to be able to do with a motorized vehicle to facilitate that process, so that that can be incorporated into what we're drafting. Yes?
I just, as a matter of practicality, I want to point out that we don't have any horses that are trained to use carts. I know that that was mentioned before. That takes months of training. That takes the right type of animal, and we also don't have a cart. I don't believe.
Well, but it just, is come forward with a proposal that starts the conversation
Right
in
now, we
terms
don't
of
have
what
a
makes
motorized
sense.
vehicle to take out there as well, unless it would be a tractor.
Or a small four-wheeler. We have the small
Well,
four-wheeler.
it's just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wagon.
but think
that
think about, Jim?
All right, in my discussion, I wasn't implying that we should wait until the droppings end up on the trails before we pick them up. If we prevent it from ever getting onto the trail, that would be best. Mass State Police, when they participate in parades, they put some kind of almost like a diaper on the horse.
Yep.
It prevents it from dropping down the middle of the street as the horses go through parades. You could use something like that.
That also requires training.
Okay, you could
you
use
know,
something
they-
like that, but you
Yeah.
could also avoid the use of motorized ATVs, which, that's been a problem in the past at East Boston camps, and that's a problem in and of itself. You get somebody racing through, whether they're picking up manure or just going for a joyride, and suddenly everybody else sees them in there, and everybody's gonna be doing the same thing. So I don't wanna get motorized vehicles onto the property specifically, except for emergency use, and our rules cover that situation for police or fire access. That's the only time emergency vehicles are allowed, I mean motorized vehicles.
What would you think about allowing motorized vehicles for an initial cleanup? You know, just in terms of getting us back to a good starting point.
Well, I was hearing that one of the problems with it is that it requires training to use the, some kind of a trailer on a horse.
No.
I know you're talking about using the motorized vehicle. No, I don't want to put motorized
You
vehicles.
don't want, okay,
I don't want to
so,
put
Honestly,
motorized
not
vehicles on
a
the
huge
property.
problem.
We're
I
just-
hand
we're
walked the
inviting-
trails Friday and Sunday and scooped off
I
of
can't hear
Vinebrook's
you.
property. If we have
She
to
can't
walk.
hear you, Teresa.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if they're gonna want it thrown though. They're gonna want it picked up.
I was just,
Stay
I guess
Okay.
I should start with, is it removal or is it allowed to be spread?
Allowed to be spread.
It doesn't
it
appear,
off the
I don't know,
trails,
like
throw it off the trails.
phosphorus content, I don't believe is
If it's not
very
nearby
So-
high at
so-
all.
I don't want it
So,
to be spread,
I
you have
think-
no control over that.
I think in the proximity to the pond, we would want
obviously
it
not,
removed. The trails that are not near the pond, would we want it just moved off? You know, what are people's thoughts about moving it off the trail where it can decompose?
You're talking about the one-time thing or
The one
forever
time,
and
well,
ever?
yeah, okay, let's separate that. For the one-time thing,
So
what
I
are our
thought,
thoughts?
well, the one-time thing, I always thought when you had horses or livestock, you had to have a management plan for their droppings and all of that stuff. So, just arbitrarily just leaving it there, I don't think is a plan.
We have a sign like that at East Boston camps that says specifically horses and dogs you need to pick up after pets.
So I have
Yes.
a question.
Does it work?
okay.
Hi, so I'm understanding they were in business for about 50 years or so, and for the last, I don't know, for 40 years ago, they had 20 to 30 horses going out on those trails every hour on the hour. That's a lot of manure. That's a lot of droppings. Now, that number is almost nothing compared to that. And if, I don't, it would have to go to someone smarter than me, that if you were to, for the last 50 years, horse manure has been on those trails. If anything was going to happen to the pond, it would have happened already. It
okay.
definitely would have happened in the beginning. But taking the manure out of the woods entirely, wouldn't that have an impact, a negative impact, since it's been there for so long and it's brought in species and everything else? I mean, that sounds...
Talking fresh manure here, that's supposed to be people, I'm not talking historical.
No,
No,
but,
fresh manure, this guy's putting he's taking it home and putting it in his garden. I mean, it can't be that bad.
okay.
No, it has to be removed. I'm sorry, but I mean, waste like that, whether it's from a dog or a horse or whatever, is supposed to be properly
So
managed.
where could that be taken
And
to?
I'm just saying, I mean, they're supposed to have a management plan with the state on how to deal with the manure from the horses. And you must have such a plan in place with the state. So, because it's supposed to be managed. It can't be unregulated and unmanaged on our trails, because then it's not properly being managed.
Can we get another sample of one from, who's got it?
You had a question or a statement?
I know we use the trails primarily, but we do have a lot of people that come in from Trailside Way. Some, I don't know if they're coming in from Cavallo, but they do make it in to the
There's a
pond.
mom and daughter.
The mom and daughter. So with us we're not the only ones that poop out there. Can we put a sign up over at Trailside Way telling people that come in from over there? I'm sure it's not common, but we don't want to be blamed for anybody else coming in.
I like the idea of a sign.
So I think a sign needs to go up somewhere stating it needs to be removed.
I mean, again, can be, we can get something up in the short term, something up more permanently, especially at Trailside Way. If people, again, I just found it hard to believe somebody would take a horse down, is that 220 Powers Road?
No, you're saying that they make.
Trailer in.
They
okay.
trailer
Yeah.
into Trailside. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
No,
can
we
you
can get a
come
sign.
to the mic and let us know who you are, because
we can get a
you're
sign.
on TV?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, just so that we can, yeah.
Hi, my name is Deborah Niles. I am now one of the rarely paid employees of Bobby's Ranch because we just love it so much. We are going to continue to be there and put our heart and soul into it because it's
A great
yeah.
place.
Got it.
We're here to support, not destroy.
But, I'm sorry?
Here to support, not destroy.
Thank you. I also have noticed, in taking trail rides out in that area, that everybody I meet, all of the people walking dogs, walking just hikers, it is a community. I mean, there are people. Everybody is friendly. I have not seen anyone that seems disturbed about the horses, and I've been working there for a couple of years. I had to say something now because I used to board a horse over on, is it Griffith
Yeah, yes.
Street, and I walked my horse down across 225 and down that street, and we used the pond all the time. We run, and I don't feel like it's fair for Bobby's Ranch working their tail off 52 years, dealing with their grandfather who's, in a memory care unit, which is very expensive, and they go out and even, take trees. I mean, last year with all the trees that went down, with all those storms, we were out there and their friends were out there clearing those trails so that people could walk their dogs. So it just seems like a hardship for them to have to clean up after other people. It just, and a sign.
Need to deal with the manure though, and
Okay.
this.
Yeah, and you're
A
right.
little bit more to add to mine. With having other people come in, I did some research too with, thank you, Deborah. Different towns and what different conservations do with their manure. I have pictures I can send to Matt of what their bylaws, their rules were. Kicking it off the trails were the majority. Carlisle State Forest, Canton does their Blue Hills, their rides in Blue Hills. No one removes it. They kick it off the trails. So I think asking us to actually physically remove it,
If you can send me those, because then I can reach out to
Will, I
other.
definitely
I'd like to talk to people again more.
For sure.
Why they're and I think because it is getting late. I think
Yep.
we've circled back a couple times.
Yep.
And
I
Madam
think
Chair,
we're
if
all
may-
I think we should be all on the same page. We all care about the woods. We want what's best for it. If our manure is not good for it, obviously we want to remove it. We want you guys to be friendly enough to be able to reach out to us and say, hey, something's not working.
Well, and I think, this brings up a good point, is that all the horses using that area may not come from your organization. And that's, that's kind of, we're finding a place to start. So for example, what would also be very helpful, and is if you can let us know what trails that you use. So some of this also is, if you're if you and your borders and such are focused on certain trails, then it makes it easier for us to say, okay, these, these are you, and then if we've got people coming in from trailered in or walking down the road with their horse to come in.
The pond towards 225 and Powers Road is rarely used by us. I would say for years now, we haven't been, you can tell by the vegetation, we have not been around that pond regularly.
Okay,
Very rare.
and that's where it's helpful if you come up with a statement of said, these are, and I don't know if there's a way that, because some of these,
You can do something, yeah. I mean, again, so, this is,
in terms of where you see your trail rides going, where you direct your borders, your free-range riders to go, then we know where we're working with you, and if we're still seeing issues elsewhere, then we know we're dealing with somebody else.
And I just would, hope that we could sort out some, whether we build a new trail or something like that, but the Audubon property has horse trails as well.
Okay.
And I know that our borders would still like to be able to access some of those trails.
And Audubon specifically?
It's like
It's Audubon?
It is Audubon, it's on the
Okay.
back side of the pond.
But because I grew up with a pony in my backyard, and I was told, don't go on Audubon
So
trails.
there's some, yeah, they took some
They're
away years
marked
ago.
trails.
Yeah, they are marked.
Yeah.
Anything
Okay.
that crossed a waterway we
Yeah,
can't go
so
on.
if, for example, if you're making that connection there, is where you take people, where you direct people to go. If you give us that information, that kind of helps to build a plan with us that says, okay, this is how we're going to manage this together.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do it over time. Obviously, this is not gonna happen very, all at once.
How hard is it to train the horses to wear the diapers?
So horses have a flight or fight response. And if they've never had anything strapped to their behind before, they're gonna hit one of those modes. And you don't wanna be on a horse that's in a flight or fight mode, ever.
And we put
Because you will
beginner
end up in the
riders.
hospital.
These are people that have never ridden before, going on
Even though we are
horses.
working with an elderly crew of horses, there's 6 of them that are semi-retired, and most of them just do flat work on property. There are occasional times, typically on the weekends, it's the only time we really have business that goes out into the woods at all. I don't think they would accept it anytime soon, and I wouldn't want to stress them out. They're in their 20s.
So it's probably also, where you're talking about state police, those are probably also extremely trained that they don't mind, cars coming up behind them and blasting a horn or whatever. Yeah, but I think, some of this is, we have to work through and say, okay, you're gonna get the information that you've found from other towns in terms of giving Matt resources to tap, and it's just, we come up with what we see as our needs, come up with a plan that meets your needs, and we just gotta figure it out. Okay? Eric?
Thank you. I apologize for taking so much of your time up.
I'm really glad that you came out to talk to us, because I think, this is what we need to get to, the start of a better relationship. We need to hear from people so we know what we need to address. Don?
I just wanted to add one more thing. So can we just all agree that we're excluding the horses from the pond trail, all horses? And maybe put up signs, there's maybe 4 or 5 entrances from different places to get onto the pond trail. Just put up signs that say, horses are not allowed on the pond trail.
Let's look at the whole picture and then see.
yeah, I want to talk, again, as they're,
Yeah, but this goes beyond the agreement with them, because they're saying that the horse is coming from.
But I also want to understand where they're taking, how they're accessing that Audubon property, and, again.
Yeah, there's
all
one
trails-
short section that's about 100 feet long.
Yeah,
That
and so-
Audubon owns, that's the trail that goes along the pond, but you can't get to that section unless you're walking on conservation land, part of the trail, to get to that one section. Now, there are a lot of Audubon trails on the side of the pond that goes towards Trailside and Texas Road that is Audubon land, and they have signs that say horse trails on them.
Okay.
So so to figure out how to get there without going on the pond trail, you have to go kind of like around things.
So we almost need to come up with maps for people who want to make that extra.
Right, and, and if there's a short period where they go along the pond and then go off right away, that's probably okay, but the pond right now is, they're going all the way around.
Yeah, and I think, there are a lot of things we have to work through. We're not dealing with one source of horse traffic. So yes, it's going to have we're going to have to come up with, I guess, a more detailed, what we're doing with Bobby's Ranch and then how we deal with everybody else.
But right now, we're focusing on Bobby, so let's stay focused on that and then work out a plan with them. But I like the idea about keeping horses away from the pond. So if there's a pond trail, yes, we should be keeping horses away
And so
from it.
we start with setting.
But let's stay focused on what we need to do here, and then we'll branch out from there.
Okay.
But don't lose focus.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question, or actually a comment.
Can you tell us who you are?
My name's Colin Osgood.
Okay.
And sir, could you turn your nameplate around?
Oh,
so
yeah,
it
yeah,
faces-
Eric, yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay, cool.
Gentleman, he speaks about the algae in Kennedy's Pond and the overweed and everything like that.
Don Gallia.
The person who was just here.
I didn't hear his name. How many other towns in the state of Massachusetts that have algae problems, overgrown grass, even the oceans, where beaches have to be closed because of algae reasons and everything else, and it's not due to horse manure? Yeah, I'm not saying that horse manure is not contributing, but I'm actually saying, like, what actually else contributes to all this algae growth and all these beach and lake closures?
If you'd like resources, I can provide stuff from the state. There's lots of resources.
We have, in town, we have problems that we have people's septics in the groundwater adjacent to the pond. We have people putting fertilizers on their lawn and having it wash into the pond. We have herbicide treatments that we're doing at several ponds in town. You may have, if people were here at the beginning of the meeting, there was a very long discussion about all the non-herbicide treatments that they're trying to do at Forge Pond to get the weed growth under control. It's a problem. Yeah, and we're just kind of trying to deal with everything that comes up that we can.
Because I know Forge Pond, that has kind of like a natural spring.
Yes.
Flows through, and the water can go through and everything, and
No, they're having real weed issues there that they're trying to contend with right now.
But yeah, it just, right, and one of the things that had been brought up as well is Kennedy Pond is not open to swimming. The town does not test the water. Is all of a sudden, if it becomes someplace that people think that, oh, this is a public place, I can go swim, then we've got to start testing the water. We may, and if there are bacteria, then we have to close the pond. It becomes, it's so much easier to manage if we don't have the stuff going in the pond, if we don't have people going in the pond. And that's just, is.
And that's understandable. I mean, with the teenagers nowadays, they go out to certain island, they're having campfires, they're having parties, they're pretty much doing whatever they want in the water, I guess you could say. Leaving the trash and everything around.
Yeah.
This is a beginning.
Yeah, this is we're not going to solve it tonight, but yes.
Oh, no, I totally understand that.
But it's also, some of it is, we like to know what the problems are because we don't like to see it perpetuate. We don't like to see it get worse. We can't always solve it, but we can at least try and do something.
There's a horse manure problem that we're trying to address.
Yes, and we'd like to address.
And we're taking what we think is, the majority issue, and we're working with that, and then, we'll work it out from there. But, we're trying to address it the best we can. And we really don't want the manure around the pond or in the resource area or the buffer to the extent that we can keep it out. So we're simply trying to keep it out.
Okay.
I think his point is just that in the absence of horse manure, you still have DCing issues. And I would just request that we try to look at the science of horse manure compared to other pressures on the pond. If we could just spend some time, is it Dawn said that he's concerned about phosphorus. It doesn't seem like there's phosphorus in manure. So just want to request that. And I don't think I introduced myself. My name is Lauren Bell. I'm a volunteer at the farm.
Okay. And I think, it's really, yes, it's what we need to get in place so that where you want to do trails, the trails you'll have your people use, how we handle the cleanup, and then, yes, we need to tackle the subsequent items. We want to keep horses away from Kennedy Pond. That's not, your trails where you'll have your people go is one part of that, and we just need to kind of then, as Eric said, tackle the next problem and tackle the next problem.
Do we put up signs, don't we?
Yeah, and maybe that's part of it, and,
Everything.
but gotta start somewhere.
I hate to keep dragging this out, but to address the issue of science, I have a master's degree in environmental science. My specialty was in water chemistry. I contacted in 2018 somebody from the UMass Amherst that specializes in animal waste management. Sent him a bunch of pictures of the horse manure next to the pond. He said this is completely unacceptable. I contacted the president of the North Atlantic Lake Management Society. I sent him information about the water quality measurements that were taken and sent him the pictures, and he said, well, obviously, you need to keep the horse manure away from the pond.
Okay, and-
I'll just say,
Yeah, and
the science is
But
no
nobody came
horse
to us.
manure, animal waste near water bodies.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Now we're beating a dead horse.
I will prepare a memorandum of agreement. Please send me an email with also all your names, just people who spoke, because it'll make our minutes takers' life a lot easier.
And it just, yes, and for that, if you have thoughts about, in terms of how we deal with horse manure on the trails, things that you propose for including in the memorandum of understanding, so that we're working on a document that works for both of us, feed that into Matt. And yes, you see stuff out there that you think we should know about, we really do want to know about it. If somebody's placed a call to the non-emergency number because there was a fire or something like that, you can send it. Would it be better to send it to you or the conservation at?
Conservation at Westford MA is really easy to remember.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it's on the website. It just, yes, is something you become aware of, you think we want to know, we'd like to know about it, so yes. We may not find it on our own, and we appreciate having stuff forwarded to us.
So is the cease and desist lifted at this point? What is the status?
What was the question?
Next question.
So now, what we do about the cease and desist?
How quickly can we get a plan?
I mean, the commission's next meeting is in 3 weeks, so, I think, you guys are also, you said majority of your rides are weekends.
Yes.
I would say if the commission is amenable, to lift the cease and desist as we are working towards, a memorandum of understanding, but also,
Well, why don't you do that with the caveat that they keep off the trail that's around Kennedy Pond?
right, and be mindful of, the horse manure, did that,
As we work through our memorandum of understanding, right.
That's, so.
Can I have, Marilyn, you have a question?
I'm going to say, this is a work in progress. So if we do this and it shows that we care for both sides, and it might take us months and months.
It won't be months and months.
What?
It won't be months and months.
Well, I think
But
to solve your- Okay, how about letting me talk,
let's raise
Eric?
the cease and desist With
Can
the
I have a mo-
caveat that they, go
I
ahead,
would like
I'll
not
let
to
you
be
do
shut
it.
off.
Can I have a motion to lift the cease and desist order while we work through the details of creating a memo of understanding?
So moved.
Can I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Please send me.
I'll CC you, Matt, then.
Yeah.
I just ask a
Yeah,
quick question?
sure.
Sorry, Chris Barrett, Vos Hill Road. So next steps, this memorandum of understanding will come back before the commission. It will be voted on in a public forum, and you will have,
It will be discussed in a public forum in terms of working, is Matt and the representatives may have a discussion offline, back and forth over the wording, but it will come to the commission. It will be an agenda item. We will discuss it. We will vote on it. And same with all the other things we have to tackle.
perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Okay.
Done.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Moving on to our 8:10.
Okay. Moving on to our 8:10 agenda item, a minor modification request for 60 Pleasant Street. I'm going to recuse myself. Eric, over to you.
And if you can take conversations outside, please, just, the mic picks up a lot of discussion.
So how are we doing on this minor modification here, Matt?
So there were three, the arborist for the tree company that's actually performing the work at 60 Pleasant Street, they identified 3 additional trees. I think they maybe all some species of oak, 2 of which were exhibiting decay at the bottom of the trunk. The third tree, as shown in the photo, has a significant lean to it. Kind of looks like Michael Jackson, doing that. It's 9:20. We got after dark hours. We're having fun playing. I was at the site Wednesday for a pre-construction meeting with the contractors doing the work and the builders. I certainly agree with the arborist's report. With the one if amenable with the commission, the one condition that native species as to be replanted elsewhere on the property also be replanted in proximity to these trees. Included the map from the report, from the initial report. They are trees 15, 17, and 21. 15 and 17, trees 16 and 14 also are trees to be removed that the commission originally approved. So if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the minor modification to remove the 3 trees.
Are there going to be any replanting, or is this?
Well, that was the condition,
All right.
Typical with, you're cutting down trees and replant.
Questions from the commission in regards to the minor modification request?
Nope.
Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the minor modification request for 60 Pleasant Street LLC, DEP file number 334-1847?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may, I'm on a roll and we can keep moving things along.
Have at it.
I received a request from a captain of the Westford Police Department who is involved with the Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. Their mountain bike unit, they're requesting to conduct training exercises at the Stony Brook Conservation Area, specifically on August 4th, but they're also thinking of an additional date in October, November as the activity.
August 7th.
October 7th, sorry.
August.
August 7th. And this is consistent with previous training exercises that have been conducted annually since 2021. I've included a draft poster that gets put up a couple days in advance just so the public is aware. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and pending favorable commission vote, I then have to reach out to the Westford Land Preservation Foundation to get their okay. Again, they've also approved in the past. So, any questions?
Okay.
Can I just have a
It's
motion?
no conflict with our camp.
No, and so the
Or the-
camps
or
are
rec.
out, the camps, they schedule it so that
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Rec is done and the.
And Teamworks is done
Teamworks is
at,
done for the-
yeah,
for the
Rec is
day.
done, I think, at 5:30, Teamworks is done at 6. And again, this is actually a similar time frame that they did last year
Okay.
within the camp time frame. So they like, it's, they found it worked well for their training.
So you are looking for a motion to approve the request to use Stony Brook Conservation Area for this training?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
On to the next Stony Brook Conservation Area request. The Westford Health Department and the local Public Health Institute of Massachusetts, which is associated with Boston University and does training. They prepare trainings for the Board of Healths and health agents as a whole. They're looking to film a camp inspection training. The health department's director is familiar, is involved with both groups, and Stony Brook is an ideal location as it has a lot of different things, there's a waterfront, there's, and it's, she thought it was a great opportunity to have, a training video made. They do propose some, they are proposing, a walkthrough while the camps are still in operation. So any approval, I would just condition that, they also be allowed to do, allowed by the camp lessee, the camp operators.
I agree. Some people don't want their kids.
Right, no,
shooting
I don't think it's the kids be involved. It's more so like the physical, spaces of, an archery range. Here's how you inspect an here's how somebody, so I don't think there are kids involved. I think they're actors, volunteer actors through this, I think the Loop Lab, but kind of identifying, common items and common areas of, camp inspections, to, better educate the health agents as a whole across the state.
Jim?
I think we can deconflict a little bit better with the camp and rec operations. The pre-film, I think they could probably do that in the early evening after both camps are done, and they can do that in July or August. But the filming, that's where they're going to have access to the infirmary because they want to take pictures of drugs in the refrigerator. There's a lot of things here that I think they should be completely separated from our tenants.
Actually, so the actual filming, both summer camps and
Programs.
operation, August 16th, the Friday before.
They're all done and they've moved all their equipment out?
Yep, they'll be, and so, I mean, I think, at least in talking with the health department director about, again, getting the, some video of, the archery firing line and things like that, they may be done in advance of, but again, with the approval of the camp operator, everything,
So
caveat.
both the rec and the day camp are done for the entire season and off the property by, when, August?
August 16th is, so,
So a week, the following Monday, they want to be in there filming.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want there to be any conflict between the two of them.
Okay, that's understood.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion to approve this,
Why is there going to be lighter fluid in a fire pit going? That's open from fire.
So they want to, again, they want to film, somebody left lighter fluid, show like, show violations so that they can, show how to write up a violation, is my understanding.
So they're going to bring in
Okay. So, can I have a motion to approve this request to film at East Boston Camp, Stony Brook Conservation Area for this training?
Pending pending no conflicts, pending approval and no conflicts with the camp operators.
And that's who gets to decide if it's.
And the rec
conflict.
department.
The rec department and the camp operator, not the
Yeah.
health department, and not us, but the rec department and the operator, okay?
For the third time.
Marilyn says so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're on a roll.
Yep, well, there's minimal stuff to report from here on out. 20 Keys Road, I don't have, they're still there. It's on my list to address this week and, get resolved for the commission's next meeting and get it off. Stony Brook Conservation Area, Jim provided a couple, Jim, I appreciate your,
3 more entries in the police blotter with problems at East Boston camps, 2 destruction of public property and 1 report of public drinking. Not from me. I don't know who wrote them up, but that's what's in the blotter.
And one of them, we think, was yours, because it mentioned being initially.
we found that one. It was
It was on the 4th of July.
Yeah, no, but it
Yeah.
was
It was categorized as
Edwards Beach, and I
Oh,
was
yeah,
like,
they called me back and they're like, yeah, Edwards Beach seems fine. I'm like, well, that's great, because I was calling about East Boston
well, the
camp.
funny part is that the funniest part was there was a report later in the day at Edwards Beach. So, just,
Got it.
yeah, so when you see them, let me know, and we'll request them from the police department. I am keeping them in a folder. My apologies for not including them in the meeting packet, but we have, Margaret is copied on my email request. She is seeing them, that
And
I am getting them.
I guess we're also very close to the end of the season for the beaches, and the rec department never hired any.
Again, that was more of I was hoping to have more, I think, I would describe it as a miscommunication, and again, I haven't been able to square it since returning.
I'm talking about the monitors.
No, I understand.
Weekend stuff.
Right, and so that was, again, that's more so on me of just, and,
But I thought we're on the rec department's list of openings.
Right, I mean, but I was, there were miscommunications about, I think I needed to provide the document, the how this position is to be employed, what that role is, and that was, and as opposed to, again, where Edwards Beach and Forge Beach, they've been established, they don't, they have an understanding as to how to be filled and how that role is to work, how that.
What the job description is?
Yeah, what the job description is.
So what are we gonna do?
Again, I want to get that resolved, at least at bare minimum, so that if it can't be filled in the next, it can't be filled very quickly, it's ready for next year, and in their hiring, it gets included.
Well, how long do they have beach attendants at the other beaches?
Usually Labor Day.
Okay, so if we could get somebody in there in that same time frame, we would still want to move forward with it.
Yep. Edwards Woods got an email from Noel about a ute on a dirt bike. I'm following up with the police department to how to proceed, because we have a property that we understand where they live, so I want to follow up with the police department about how to
Proceed.
Freedom Park, I know Margaret and Noel have been communicating about end of year, or kind of volunteer efforts.
Yeah, Noel needs to get me, they've got a new scoutmaster, so he needs to get me the new scoutmaster name so we can start lining stuff up for what we want done in the fall. The vegetation that got mowed is starting to regrow. I see that the chain is actually locked.
Oh, that's great.
And there's a little.
It's always locked, Margaret.
One time it was on the ground. so it makes it easier for people to get in there that shouldn't. But yeah, and there's just, there's bittersweet coming back that I need to go make a foray over to, but yeah, there's lots of natural vegetation. But we need to talk to Highway about putting in some boulders and what they're gonna do for their fall clean, what they're gonna do for the fall mowing.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Summer Village.
I do not have an update at this time. Nor the conservation restriction. Again, things progressed a little bit faster after following the
I think
commission's
the
last.
police officer retired and the guy might have died by now.
You say that in jest. Your point is well taken. Thank you, Joe. Board reorganization, no, I'm not trying to have a coup, but with, as included in the commission's meeting packet, former member Bob Boonstra, and it was seconded by Peter, so both people who are no longer here.
Say again what you're saying.
Board reorganization, just, annually see if there needs, if people want to be in new positions, but we should do that when the full commission is here, so.
I sit there.
That's a rock, paper, scissors thing, but
But yeah, the commission voted that every year.
How did
Bob-
Eric get that seat?
Bob moved that every year the commission should vote on who fills what roles.
I
Has
remember
it been a
that.
year since we did that last?
Yes.
usually start of the fiscal year is kind of my
Yeah.
kicker, but,
So,
I mean, we're about at a year, but all,
Remember that.
all the commission needs to be here.
but Noel's not.
No, it's not, so we'll table this for the next meeting,
Okay.
Okay,
It's not urgent.
no.
or maybe it is. Hey, you gotta keep people turning
You are
out.
really wound. A good night's
He's very
sleep.
overtired.
Been here too long, let's finish this.
No sleep.
And your life is just beginning.
Come on, guys.
Okay, meeting minutes.
Will you be happy, please?
Okay. Meeting minutes for June 26th.
I had one correction for the sidewalk at Tenant Meadows.
What page?
It's on page 3,
Thank you.
and I was there. So Jeffrey should be included in that sidewalk.
I will, okay,
And-
yep.
And no,
And Noel, were you there? Did you? I didn't-
Nope,
Okay,
okay, so
so-
that's the,
That's it, just got switched, I think.
yeah. And I caught that one, and I also asked that a sentence be added to document that the vegetation we saw was extensive growth of autumn olive and oriental bittersweet, which are invasive non-native plants, so there's, it's not just, to me, that was a significant factor in what we saw and the urgency to address it. And then there was also, the bottom of page 3, there was the fourth sentence kind of began with
Yeah,
a little bit
okay.
of confusing.
Right, I marked it.
Yeah.
the and it, yeah.
So it was
It was
unclear.
unclear.
Clear, thank you. I can work with that.
Any other? So can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 26, 2024 as amended?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. July 10th, meeting minutes. Jim?
On page 4, the discussion about the Emmett and Neshoba Brook Conservation Area use. About the third or fourth sentence down, it says, at the it's talking about the past. It's recounting the meeting of June 26th, which we just went over. The June 26th description of that whole discussion, I felt was accurate, and we didn't make any changes to it, it was fine. But this one says that at the conclusion of that meeting, it was decided to send a cease and desist order to Bobby's Ranch. I went back and watched the YouTube version that was copied. You can't watch Westford Cat because they only got 20 minutes of that meeting for some reason. But if you go to the YouTube version, we never mentioned once a cease and desist order. The only thing that Matt brought up was a sternly worded letter. So I would say it was decided to send a sternly worded letter to Bobby's Ranch regarding use of town land for their business. And then the next sentence, it says that letter was sent, and then at that point, we can say a cease and desist letter was sent. That wasn't what we discussed, but that's what got sent.
Okay.
So, and in keeping with this discussion, I have them marked, edited on here, we can pass that down to Matt.
Okay.
The exact words I just read out are on there. But I think we have to do something where the commission gets to see the letters that are gonna be sent on things like that, because we didn't see it until 2 weeks after it went out. I got a call from a patron of Bobby's Ranch, in fact, that they received this cease and desist letter, and we hadn't even talked about a cease and desist. We had sternly worded. I think Eric had mentioned several times that we wanted them to stop it, but it didn't say what it was. Was that the horses at the beach? Was it use of the land? Was it the droppings on the trails? It wasn't clear. So we had a lot of discussion. We had a lot of points brought up, but what worked its way into a cease and desist letter wasn't really clear to me how that happened.
And I think maybe that, what was missing was between our meeting and when the letter went out was the investigation of their website saying that we have access
To
to
2,000
acres.
Versus 23.
Yeah, and then
was really
it
strange.
went from just being the nuisance manure to you are also operating a commercial business without the,
Oh, that's
Without
what, we
the-
talked about that a lot at that meeting on
Right.
June 26th, so that was part of the discussion.
right, but it was an assumption that they were advertising that they were using our property. And later we got the confirmation that they were.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's also, I had noticed that, I thought they only have 22 acres, not
22 or 23, something like that.
I can.
Okay.
Plus or minus. Just
Plus
put
or minus,
put a plus or
okay.
mi- It's around that, but if you put a plus or
About
minus.
approximately 22 acres.
Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I have to add to that is there was a sentence quoting me that says, almost every step taken had to be done carefully, and I didn't think I was quite that.
On what?
It's in what I sent you.
Okay.
But basically I said, well, I suggested replacing with almost every step, so replacing that with careful attention was needed so as not to step in manure.
Okay, that's simple enough.
Yeah, because it was disconcerting how often I had to stop and not step in manure.
Yes, that came through.
So, but anyway, okay. And then the top of page 5, under Freedom Park improvements, I just asked that a sentence be included that I had observed cutting of the natural vegetation, cutting of native vegetation in the naturalized buffer to Forge Pond had been mowed. Because that just, anyway. So, are there any other changes?
We approve them as amended.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any other business? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.